Ladies and gentlemen, I'll call the meeting to order and welcome everyone. I'll go to item 1, which is introduction. In the event of an emergency, the building may be evacuated. You'll be required to vacate the building by the rear entrance and gather at the breezeway between the library and the art gallery buildings. This is Council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the building until all clear has been given and the area deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, a member of council staff will assist any member of the public with a disability to vacate the building. Item 1.1, we don't have anyone zooming or an apology. Item 1.2, live streaming and recording. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at this council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at this council meeting that you ensure you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. A recording of this council meeting will be made for administrations of purposes. I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I would also like to pay respect to the elders both past, present of the Wiradjuri nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who are present. 1.4, declarations of interest. Has any councillor got a declarations of interest? Okay, there was a couple of hands went up first. I'll go with Councillor Kinghorn.
Okay, yeah, just my usual. So the Planning and Development Committee, item 2.2. My husband's environmental consultancy has done some work on this site for the developer, so I will not be voting on this one.
Councillor Evans.
Mr Mayor, item 6.3 of the closed meetings as it involves a customer of my business. Thank you.
Any others? I've got one which is in the planning of delegated authority, item DA 295. 20221, Octec Limited, as I'm a board member, even though it's been delegated authority, and also in the finance, the donations in 2.2 number 1 for Orange High Prize giving, as I'm a member of Orange staff. Any others? Okay. Our opening prayer tonight, we welcome Mr. Greg Blanche. He's a minister at Orange Evangelical Church, and ask that he lead us in the opening prayer this evening. Greg?
Thank you for asking me to do this. Let's pray. Father God, from the beginning of creation, you've clearly shown that you're a generous, compassionate and powerful God. Shown most clearly in what we soon come to celebrate this month, the sending of your Son into our broken world to live our life and die our death. Thank you for all you generously provide in our city of Orange, in particular for the gift of one another, of community. Thank you for the councillors, the council staff, and for what they do to serve our community and help it grow. You're the God of all wisdom, so we pray for wisdom for these men and women in the decisions they need to make, both straightforward and complex. Work through these decisions to help grow our community as a community of compassion, kindness, and opportunity for many. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
The meeting will now adjourn for the conduct of the open forum. As we have 10 speakers, I made the decision with you guys blessing that we go 4 minutes each speaker. So that means we'll go for 40 minutes for the public forum tonight.
Mr Mayor, if we ask them...
Can you speak in you?
I think so. Yeah. If any of the speakers, if we can, if you're listening to the other speakers, but yeah, they can say what they want. Anyway, that's okay. Our first speaker tonight will be Mr. Rod Frager, who is talking on PDC item 2.2 DA 392/2021, 6 to 8 Callaway Street, Orange. If you could come up to the microphone, Rod, and I'll just give a quick introduction of all the councillors around the room. I'll start on my left here. I've got Councillor Jeff Whitten, Councillor Tammy Greenhouse, Councillor Mel McDonald, Deputy Mayor Gerald Powell, Councillor David Mallard, Councillor Steve Peterson, Councillor Kevin Duffy, Councillor Glenn Floyd, Councillor Jack Evans, Councillor Francis Kinghorn, and Councillor Tony Miletto.
Sorry, am I allowed to stay for this if I'm not able to vote on it? Do I have to go?
You are allowed to stay.
Okay, Mr. Fragar.
First of all, thank you for allowing me to come this evening to express our concerns and my concerns over this development. I'm sorry if I stutter a bit or walk. This is the first time I've done this, so please bear with me. I've written it down because that's probably the easiest way that I can do it. And just to let you know quickly that myself and my family moved into Coorem Avenue, where this is going to be a development affecting 30 years ago. We've lived there and have had no real problems at this time. We've no thought of moving, as all our neighbours in our small area get on quite well. When we moved into Coorem Avenue, there was a shopping centre that was very active. It had a supermarket, a hardware shop, a takeaway shop, hairdresser, butcher, laundromat, accountant and a doctor's office. We used the local hardware shop when we renovated our house when we moved into this area. Bunnings was then moved in and the small hardware shop was basically forced out, unfortunately, and this then started the decline of the shopping centre. It started going downhill until vandalism, theft and antisocial behaviour caused its closure. It has been left a vacant site, which has become an eyesore and a danger for local residents. And then we saw Bunnings move out again, and the same sorts of things started happening to Bunnings. But since then, I've seen that there is actually work going on up there to improve that site. But it was left vacant for quite some time. I firmly believe, and same with some of the people that we've spoken to in the local area, this is the wrong type of development for this area of Orange, or basically any housing area of Orange. Orange has a problem with underground car parks, and to bring this into a residential area with the amount of cars that will be located at all hours of the day is only encouraging issues to arise. In our area over the past years, we have had issues with gang fighting, cars burnt out and drug houses. And all these issues I'm more than happy to discuss with any councillor if they are interested. I can give accounted details on all this. Because unfortunately we have a force that aren't really interested in coming to help us in our area. In Orange, what we really probably need is more affordable housing for single parents, families in residential areas on ground levels, not these multi-storey buildings in this sort of area. It says this housing development is for specially disabled natured people to live in these apartments. How many families are there in Orange that can take use of the 42 apartments that are looking at being built in this area? Is there going to be security on site for 24 hours a day so these type of people are not taken advantage of? Because are we opening up more areas for antisocial behaviour with stairwells, lifts and underground car parks in this area? Would a development of this nature be more suited out maybe near the nursing home, the new hospital, where specialised help can be nearby? This is again probably just outside a residential area, which may be a safer option. If we can't provide housing for the local people that need it, for the single parents and lower income people, unfortunately, then maybe we're probably better off leaving this block as a grass paddock than what it is. We also saw that with the new southern bypass that was being constructed, Lone Pine Avenue and Coorem Avenue were used as the detour routes, which caused a lot of breaking up happening on these roads, especially with the trucks that were using it at the time. So with the extra construction traffic that will happen if this is to go ahead, the extra housing traffic that will be then affected with the 42 units, we're going to be repairing the roads to a drivable standard in our area. With the discussion with the other local residents, we believe that this really isn't the right type of development in our area and would only create problems for the local community. With the crime rate, we believe will increase because we're opening up areas for antisocial behaviour. As a community in that area, we'd love to see shops come back to that area where we can actually have a supermarket or we can have a takeaway shop or something. I just feel, and same with some of our other local residents, feel this is totally wrong type of development for this area. So I'd just like to thank you for your time then. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that. Rod. Our next speaker is Gary Arthur. Mr. Arthur, yeah. And Mr. Arthur's speaking on the same DA.
Mr Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. The previous speaker has spoken about a lot of our concerns, hence I've got all this written. I'll be probably only about 2 minutes. One I'd like to raise is that I've read the report about the development, and I noticed that somewhere in the 288 pages that the DA be approved. My wife, my daughter, and myself were horrified. We freely admit that I'm not skilled in understanding the legal and regulatory requirements involved in these procedures, but it seems to me that these requirements and procedures aimed at addressing the issues for the applicant far above the concerns and rights of the existing residents of Glenroy. Now, the proposed and amended development will have serious impact on privacy, particularly where we are. As the proposal shows, there's balconies and windows in all 3 buildings. They will look directly into our yard and our neighbours as well. Our daughter, who lives with us here, has a cognitive disability, and her bedroom window faces directly towards the proposed development. Now, there's no way I can imagine any privacy with this kind of development, and blocking off the windows of the development will only make these monstrosities even worse. I'd like to talk about other things, but I'm sure I can leave this up to some other speakers, but I thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Amber Gunn, and she is speaking on DA 507-2021, 314 Anson Street. Thanks, Amber.
Good evening, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Amber Gunn, and I live at 312 Anson Street, which is next door on the south side to the proposed development at 314 Anson Street. The development application made is for a two-storey studio space using the footprint of the existing garage. I have come today to express my concern with and the opposition to the development application made. This matter was adjourned at the council meeting in March to enable the owners to consider modifying their development application. No changes to the application have been made. The height of the proposed building is at nearly 6 metres tall. Being 2 storeys and in such close proximity to our shared fence line will result in an imposing building that will dwarf my small single-storey home and small backyard. My concern about the proposed building is shared by the Orange City Council Planning Department. As per their Planning Department report, the visual bulk envelope non-compliance is excessive and will result in visual bulk encroachment, impacting the southern dwelling and yard being my home. It is documented that the proposal is in excess of 2 metres above the maximum height for a building on the site, given the minimum setback from the side boundary. The glass door and second-storey window on the west side of the proposed building will result in a substantial loss of my visual privacy. The glass door and most certainly the second-storey window will look directly into my backyard and the back room of my home. I fear the loss of privacy this will create and believe it breaches planning outcome visual privacy in the Orange Development Control Plan. Proximity of this building to the fence line is only 45 centimetres. I'm concerned that a second habitable dwelling with studio space so close to the boundary will result in overshadowing of my backyard. I only have a small backyard and fear I'll lose a lot of natural sunlight as a consequence. In summary, I'm concerned the proposed new independent double-storey entity that is exceptionally close to our shared fence line will be too tall, bulky, and will result in physical and visual overshadowing of my small single-storey home and backyard and a substantial loss of my privacy. These concerns are shared by the Orange City Council Planning Department. I hope you consider my concerns, the expertise of the town planners, and their recommendation to refuse consent of the application when you make your decision today. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Amber. Our next speaker is Margie Totman, who is speaking on ESPC 22 Minutes of the Parks, Trees and Waterways Community Committee on the 13th of October 22. Margie.
Mr Mayor and councillors, thank you very much for letting me talk today. Hi, I'm Margie Totman, Orange girl born and bred and a ratepayer. I'm pretty passionate about what goes on in our city, and like others, I want our voices heard. A Facebook post invited people to Cook Park on Sunday to express their concerns regarding the removal of the aviary. Interested parties from all sectors attended: aged care, disability services, Bird Society, families and kids, and a 75-year-old man that goes there every week to see the birds. Sorry, a bit nervous. We have all been impacted by illness, mental health and death, and walking through this park feeding the ducks and chatting to the birds is solace in itself, healing, and that's rehabilitation. Australia Day and weekends are packed with families, picnicking under the trees, and those kids want to see the birds and the ducks. Gets them interacting with the nature. I was there Saturday and watched 3 kids run around the corner, bags full of macas, straight to the birds. Mum and Dad found a spot on the grass. Macas wasn't a priority for these kids. Those birds were. Orange has a building with a grass hill on it and some fancy golf balls. Sorry, gold balls, and soon we'll be displaying pictures of bees at a cost of $177,000, whilst the aviary and other parts of the town then be going to rack and ruin. I don't know of any other park in our region with an aviary. Wellington Caves has an aviary, a big aviary, and it's more popular than the caves. Google reviews, travellers love our park, and they also comment on the beautiful aviary. The original aviary was donated to the people from a former mayor in 1930, but updated in 1994. For 92 years, it hasn't been a problem until now, left to a council that can't roster a worker on once a week to tend to its needs. The sign clearly states maintained 3 times a week. I was up there Sunday and it didn't look like it was. It's in poor condition and so are the birds, sadly. I stated on Facebook, if council doesn't supply or won't supply that worker, I'm happy to volunteer my time and effort to keep this beautiful aviary for future generations to enjoy. Other people have also put their hand up to volunteer. That's dedication from the public. In 2014, Councillor Neil Jones wanted to spend $1 million of ratepayers' money to buy a big piece of twisted aluminium sculpture to put at the entrance out Bathurst Road into Orange. I called it Neil's bird perch. But we've got a bird perch in a beautiful aviary. Why not utilise that? If it's a funding issue, well, it's okay that we spend $92,000 on gold balls and thousands replacing the trees that we've just pulled out from Lord's Place. Read social media. People aren't happy. It's part of Orange and it's part of our Cook Park. I'm not here to ruffle any feathers. I'm here to express my concerns for the impact this will have on a beautiful tourist attraction that brings dollars to our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sue Duckney, talking on the same issue. Thanks, Sue.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak about the birds in the aviary. My name's Sue Duckney. I'm the owner-operator of One-on-One Community Care. I work out in the community with the aged, disabled, palliative, early onset dementia, age dementia and mental health. Now, I can honestly say that I visit the park every day. I work 7 days a week with my clients. Each time when I ask them where they want to go, we'll start with the aged care. They want to go to see the birds, to bring back memories, to connect and bond with the birds. With disability, there are a lot of disabled people in Orange who are sight impaired, so they can't see the birds in the trees. They can get up close and personal to them. A lot of disabled people that have profound hearing problems, so they can't hear the birds up in the trees. They see them and hear them there. In palliative, I'm often asked, take them there to, one last time for a visit there. Same with early onset dementia. One thing they do remember is, hello cocky, want a cracker, all that. That all comes to them. They can't access a lot of things in the park, like the rose garden or anything like that. The park is central. It's easy for them to get to walk to catch a bus, and it's accessible to them to see the birds. I ask that you reconsider, any of you who are thinking about transferring the birds. This is their home. They can't be let out in the wild because they won't last a minute. We all know that. They'll be attacked by their own kind because they know they don't belong out in the wild. I ask especially for the children and mums and bubs that go out there to enjoy the birds. We all have someone in our family, whether they be aged, disabled, early onset dementia, that remember this from their childhood. It's something that pulled us together when the pandemic was on. I know a lot of my patients who had mental health issues like schizophrenia or personality disorder. That's the only thing that calmed them. And I was thankful for that. They could just get out and just sit down and just look at them and hear them, to get out of the house when they were allowed to. All I ask is that you reconsider, this is our heritage. Cook Park is, I don't know if it's under a heritage title, but what about the birds that are within that heritage? What about looking after them? What about the grandchildren? What about tourism? What's the first place people want to see? They want to see the birds at Cook Park. They want to go to Lake Canobolas, the Botanic Gardens, but it's mainly the birds. When we have an Australia Day function at the park, it's the first place people go to. They go to the birds, don't they? Where else? Okay, and the visitors go there, people feel relaxed there, have picnics around there, and they connect. I'm asking and I'm representing the aged, disabled, early onset dementia, mental health, palliative. This is, for most of them, this is their world. They need to connect, they need to get away, and it's the birds. A lot of people who have a mental health issue don't trust anybody, but they trust to talk to the birds and just sit there and relax, and it calms them. Thank you for listening to me. I'm a little bit nervous, but this is a passion close to my heart. We ourselves can remember when we used to go with our grandparents to the park. I did when I was a little girl with my grandmother. We've been with our children and we've been with our grandchildren. Please reconsider. There's no shame in changing your mind. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. Our next speaker is Mr. Tony Ford on the same issue.
Good evening all. My name's Tony Ford. I've been president of the Orange Bird Society for the last roughly 15 years. This matter came to my attention when Senator Duffy phoned last week and said, Tone, they look like doing something to the bird aviaries. He said, give me your honest opinion. I said, I can't say that in front of these people here tonight, Kev. It is a disgrace the way they've let this go. Cook Park is renowned for a tourist attraction. For people to come and see that is a disgrace. But we can change it. Our plan is to open up a big walk in Avery, devise a little cafe, seats, brighten up the area. Whoever built Fort Knox would have been embarrassed with this fella. He was just in, it's a maze of jungle, steel. It needs to be brightened up, opened up and rehabilitated. The birds that are in there are there for a reason. We've got Wires, RSPCA, who are forever looking after birds that need rehabilitation, cannot be released and need somewhere to go. 20 years ago, it was all voluntary work in there. I wasn't involved at the time, but they maintained the aviaries. The birds were looked after, they were fed, they were cleaned. The council discretion, they said, no, we can look it after ourselves. Insurance reasons, we don't want anything to happen to anyone. If you probably have a look, more volunteers are associated with projects now that do not get hurt. They're willing to do their job properly. Don't fight, don't argue, get in there and do it because they want to do it, not because they're told they've got to do it, which you end up with a better result. If we can open up this Avery here, make it a spectacular. Bathurst has got Mount Panorama, Parks has got the telescope, Dubbo's got the zoo. Talking to Glenn Mickle today, 1.2 million people drive through Orange every year. A lot of them stop to go to the Dubbo Zoo. They stop to go to the Bathurst Mount Panorama. Why can't they stop to go and see the bird over in Orange? Let Cook Park be known as, and Orange, known as environmentally free open space. As the people of Orange know, we're so critical at times, so negative. When something like this came up and the first thing they said, let the birds go and knock it down. Be positive. Rehome the birds, open it up, make it a space where it is friendly, it is easy to look at, easy accessible. We have our wine fairs, we have our food fairs, our markets, but they all involve adults. Let's get the kids involved. With the kids, the adults will come. They've got to come, they've got to bring the kids. Let's make this something that put Orange on the map. We can do it. We've got the personnel here in front of us to make a decision tonight to say this is what Orange needs. Something for everyone, not just the adults. Let's do it, people. You just can do it. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Our next speaker is Ms. Dalton. You're not speaking. No. Our next speaker is Mr. Scott Turner. Mr. Turner, yep. Mr. Turner is speaking on, excuse me for a second, on item 4.2, notice of motion, Gunnabulla Mount Canobolas mountain bike trail. Mr. Turner.
Thank you, Orange City Council, for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name's Scott. I'm the owner of one of the two bike shops here in Orange. I'm a mountain biker and I obviously support the mountain bike development on Mount Canobolas. I'm not speaking today to fuel any arguments. I just want to put forth some positive support for the project and plead any of you that are undecided to consider your vote on the issue. I can safely say that there is one thing all sides of the argument can agree on, and that is that Mount Canobolas is a beautiful place that needs protecting. We as mountain bikers believe this also, care deeply for its future, especially in regards to any Indigenous sites and on the mountain and environmental issues with the project. Why conversation about the project needs to remain open. We need to stop and just talk to each other. To this date, there has not been one civilised conversation where the facts about the project have been discussed without vicious retaliation from the opposition. A civil conversation needs to happen, find some common ground, because this opportunity is too great to let go. There's not one person that lives in Orange that won't positively benefit from the huge amount of tourism revenue that will that the project will bring to local business. More tourism traffic equals more jobs, more business opportunities, and simply more money turning over through our town. So please consider your decision as the ball is now ultimately in your court. Don't let the conversation die here today. Let's keep it going and let's see where it takes us. I'd also like to thank any members of our mountain bike community. There's a few here tonight. For showing their support for the project and show all of you that we do have an interest in seeing this through.
Thanks, Mr. Turner. Our next speaker is Rodney Farrell, who's on Zoom. Can you hear me, Rod?
I've got you. Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You've got 4 minutes, Mr. Farrell. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for hosting me tonight. So thank you to the Mayor, the councillors and the audience. Just a really brief history. I started with this mountain proposal nearly 10 years ago now. It was a vision that I had for the mountain that it could host a world-class trail centre. I'd lobbied Orange City Council for a number of years, and when Electrolux was given the news it was going to shut, Orange City Council asked me to whether I thought the mountain proposal had legs, and it does. And so over the last 10 years, I've been involved throughout as a stakeholder, and more recently in the PCG. So I've been involved with this for a long time now. In that time, there's always been consideration for why Mount Canobolas, but it's the perfect topography. It has a 500-metre vertical drop, a centrally paved road. You can ride there nearly year-round. Orange is a destination you can fly in and out. Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, and New South Wales is starved of mountain biking. But probably the real reason is the mountain needs mountain biking. So mountain biking is a massive industry now. It's a $600 million industry in Australia. So Derby's the poster child in Australia, and Derby's only been around since 2015 from an initial investment of $3.1 million in a regional tourism grant. In 2017, which was the last economic report, the annual investment into the Dorset Council was $30 million. Since then, there's been more trails, more beds, better infrastructure, and Derby's hosted 2 EWS events with another one in March. Derby is booming. There is thousands of people there. Rotorua is the sort of brother in New Zealand to Orange. It's similarly located from the capital, similar size. It has an established trail network, and that's after some pushback. If you do any research on the Rotorua mountain biking, you'll see that they now have a very strong community, a very strong stakeholder group, including the Indigenous. But initially, there was some pushback from the logging. So to give you an idea on how big this industry can be, in 2021, through COVID, no international travel, Rotorua had an attributed 850 full-time jobs to mountain biking, $103 million directly, and with additional multi-use visitors totaling $139 million. Mountain biking's big business. Orange is a great town for mountain biking with complementary businesses already established, complementary industries already established. So everyone can be a winner here. So there's huge benefits from mountain biking, not only just the criminal and justice. There's a decreased crime rate due to increased engagement in sport and rec. The value is now quantifiable with that per ride. Mental health. In the UK now, doctors are prescribing outdoor time for mental health. Bushwalking, hiking, mountain biking. This is what we need in a community or in a society now where mental health is huge. There is also an attributable basic health benefit to the community. A cyclist is now quantifiable at $1.58 per kilometre of riding. It's a reduction to the cost of the health system and increase in life expectancy. In COVID, cycling's boomed. It's gone up 69% from pre-COVID. Last year alone, there was 1.75 million bikes sold. So Orange can tap into what is a huge market. The environmental benefits, well, to start with, we've got to acknowledge the SCA is not a pristine state conservation area. And part of the PCG, I did the ground truthing up there. I was worked with Dirt Art, the environmental...
Oh, sorry, Mr. Farrell. It's 4 minutes. If moved for an extension by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Mileto. All in favour? Against? Carried.
Thank you. So I've been part of the PCG. I've done the ground truthing where Dirt Art rated it the worst experience they've had to ground truth through. Blackberries, weeds, the environmental factor, their scientists were chased by a mob of pigs. But this is not a pristine area. This is an area that needs more resource and better management. And through mountain biking, we can give the SCA a revenue stream. We can access the worst affected areas for better management. And through the income stream, we could even open the area up for other users and other facilities. People say, you know, hey, what about the negative impacts? We've been dealing with this Orange City Council now for 10 years, and no one in the opposition to this has given us any hard evidence of negative environmental impact anywhere from mountain biking. Mountain biking's positive. It's great. I think, how did we get to this point where we've had a breakdown with the Indigenous? Well, COVID was definitely part of that. There was planned meetings with, further meetings with the Indigenous. There was a plan to have an Indigenous mediator. I think poor journalism hasn't helped. You know, journalism these days is all negative. It's all clickbait. It's all about the headline. But from my dealings in this with the PCG, there's members of the local Indigenous community in the Lauk that are for it. We had RAPs that were out there walking the trail network for us, seeing what we were seeing, working with us to understand that we're looking to work around the constraints. And I think that's a massive thing here, that we're looking to work around all the constraints, cultural, environmental. So they're not mutually exclusive. It's not as though you can't do this. Mountain biking is established in the most sensitive areas in the world. Since we started this proposal, they have built mountain bike tracks in Australia in World Heritage listed areas. The Wangati project in North Queensland, and here in Tasmania we have trails.
Hey Rodney, you got about 30 seconds, mate. Sorry, I'll have to wrap you up.
Hey, look, there's great opportunities here for the Indigenous. They could have employment. They can have an education centre. They could be involved with the commercial operation of a possible park. Look at the example of Mossman Gorge. Orange with a Mossman Gorge type cultural centre at the foothills of Mount Canobolas. Let's just keep working with the Indigenous and all the other stakeholders. Let's keep working through this process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the extension of time.
Our last speaker tonight is Keisha Delaney, who is speaking on the Council Notice of Motion Statement from the Heart. Keisha? Cachet, sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry.
So I'm grateful for this opportunity to stand before the Council and address you again on the Uluru Statement from the Heart. I stand before you wearing a number of hats: a proud Wiradjuri woman with connection to the Bulgandra-Bogan River mob, a lawyer and a member of the Uluru Statement Youth Dialogue, and an Orange girl at heart, having spent my childhood and adolescence here before moving away to study. Also stand here as a product of my ancestors, of those who came before me and those who didn't have the opportunities that I have had, and those that pushed down doors in fights for reforms like these to empower our people. It is timely to hear that the Orange Council is considering a motion of support for the Uluru Statement from the Heart and the proposed voice to Parliament. It's been a long 5 years since the Uluru Statement was first gifted to the Australian people, although the historical calls for parliamentary representation are from much longer. The Barunga Statement, the Yirrkala Bark Petitions, the Bromby Plain Statement, decades and decades of First Nations calls for self-determination, which have fallen on mostly deaf ears. We are at a turning point in the history of First Nation affairs in this country. The upcoming referendum will enshrine the power to create a First Nations voice to Parliament in the Constitution so that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and communities across this country can have a say in the law and policies that affect them. Since 1967, the federal government has had the power to make laws for any race, but has only ever used that power to legislate First Nations people. For generations, these Indigenous laws and policies have been drafted without the free, prior and informed consent of the subjects of those laws, leading to worsening outcomes and statistics I know you've all heard before. Even the pinnacle of the federal government's policy, the Closing the Gap strategy, has only seen positive movement in 2 out of the 17 outcomes, with 4 of the gaps worsening. The Voice will be a turning point, as it will provide a mechanism for input from the communities on the ground to the federal government and other levels of government so that real practical change can be made. Our communities know what works in our communities, and they need the ability to be able to have their voices heard. This referendum will enshrine the principle of the voice so that the structure can be devised from a proper, self-determined dialogue process afterwards. The Orange City Council has the opportunity to be on the right side of history with this movement. We know from community engagement and polling that majority of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people support the Voice, and a variety of polls show that the broader Australian community does too. We have countless corporates and organisations, community groups and schools, and even the Nationals MP for Calare, Andrew Gee, on our side. Both the Orange Local Aboriginal Land Council and the Orange Aboriginal Medical Service are supportive of this reform because their representatives understand intrinsically how hard it is to make progress when there isn't political consistency. And while the CEOs of the Land Council and the Medical Service couldn't be here this evening, they are so hugely supportive of the Uluru Statement of the Voice. They're really keen to support further community engagement in coming months. I spent a while yesterday afternoon on the phone to the former New South Wales Aboriginal Land Council councillor for the Wiradjuri region, Craig Cromlin, about the news of this motion. Craig was one of the delegates who attended the regional dialogues back in 2017, and he actually wanted me to pass on a message for Deputy Mayor Gerald Power. He wanted to thank you for the incredible work that you've done pushing for this reform and standing up for the community. He was someone who was there at the dialogues and witnessed the process. He told me about how the Referendum Council had been given a measly amount of money by the federal government to do something that the federal government thought would fail. They didn't think that they were going to be able to reach a consensus on constitutional recognition. But he said that what they didn't understand is that the beating heart that's within all of us who are committed to this. He told me that by the Orange City Council passing this motion, they'll join a host of other councils and organisations who have shown their support. And if you're going to talk the talk, it's time to walk the walk. The next 6 to 12 months will be a test for our nation, our ability to acknowledge the past and look to the future. And I believe that with the Orange Council's leadership and commitment, and by accepting this invitation to walk with us, we can be part of a truly incredible moment in its history that changes our country for the better. Thank you.
Thanks very much. The council meeting, mayoral minutes. We'll go to item 2.1, which is the mayoral minutes of the Local Government New South Wales Conference on page 5. Moved by Councillor Duffy. Councillor Floyd. Any discussion? Councillor Peterson.
Yeah, look, at the risk of making myself somewhat unpopular, I think there's probably a law of diminishing returns for each additional councillor from the chamber that attends the same conference. Understand there's value in attending conferences for networking and getting different ideas. Just wondering if over the summer we could have a think if maybe 1 or 2 of us could go and write a report for the others, just as a cost preservation exercise. If 6 people go to the same conference with attendance and travel and the like, probably a lot of money. I'm sorry to bring that up.
Any other speakers? There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. I'll move on to item 3.1, which is confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary council meeting. Can I have a move by Councillor Whitten?
Second, Mr.
Seconded by Councillor McDonald. Any speakers? There being no speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. The council meeting will now adjourn for the conduct of the policy committees. I'll call on Councillor Whitten to chair the Planning and Development Policy Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to open the Planning and Development Committee meeting on the 6th of December, the time being around 17 minutes past 7. Does any councillor, I am aware that there are one councillor with a declaration of interest in item 2.2. The Mayor has mentioned that he has declared an interest in the first item, as he's a member of the board of OCTEC. I too would like to, for the record, mention that I'm the chairman of OCTEC. Since those items are under delegated authority and for noting only, both the Mayor and I will stay in the room for delegated authority. I'll move on to item 2.1, items approved under delegated authority of council. Been moved by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Evans. Any discussion on this item? There being no discussion, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise your hand. Against, the motion has been carried. Item 2.2, development application DA 3922021, 6 to 8 Kalawa Street. Sorry, Councillor Kinghorn. Just one moment, councillors, while Councillor Kinghorn leaves. Okay. Item 2.2, the recommendation is on page 13. So I have a mover. Been moved by Councillor Miletto, seconded by Councillor Duffy. Any discussion on this item? Being no discussion, you're all very quiet. Oh no, here he is. You have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a few questions for the director or the acting director. My concern is, and I know this is my big concern. I'm probably not over its location or anything. I do think if it complies, build it around the years and we go to court.
What's the question, Councillor Duffy?
As far as
Through you, Mr. Mayor. There's a myriad of planning legislation that has been required to be assessed under this for this particular application. A number of SEPs, there's Apartment Design Guide, Apartment Design Principles. There's also the Seniors Living Housing SEP controls. I guess a professional assessment that's been undertaken by my staff and also some of the departmental staff that's been offered to assist with this one, certainly in favour of this application. It's been recommended for approval. It's been a challenging assessment. It's been a challenging application, but we're of the view that this application is supportable by council.
Any further questions, Councillor Miletto?
Thank you, Chair. Look, I have the same concerns as Councillor Duffy. However, in saying that, reason apart from the fact that it looks out of place in the area where it's going to be built. But that being said, that on application and as a councillor, there is no reason that I can refuse this development application. Can I just ask what the
Greenhouse, yep, certainly.
Sorry, I'll just the value of the
14 million.
14,820,000.
Half million.
So it's my understanding, if that's the case, it'd go to the Regional Joint Planning Panel then.
Under the State and Regional Planning SEP, it's got certain criteria for different developments to be considered, and this development doesn't meet that criteria.
Can you explain what areas it doesn't meet that criteria?
Under the criteria, there's various different criteria. You may note that we've had some development that involve council developments that are only over $5 million because that was one criteria. There are a number of different criteria under the SEP that generate the need for these applications to be assessed by the state and by the planning panel. For normal development applications outside of those restrictions, it's $30 million.
When does a $10 million apply?
I have to take that on notice. I don't have those.
Thank you.
Councillor Greenhouse.
More just a bit of clarification around what exactly is the definition of seniors housing?
Okay. Seniors housing, the application has been made under a number of pieces of legislation, and in particular, the applicant has sought seniors housing as such. That generates the need for an assessment under those controls. The applicant have sought to have these particular this particular development. It's available for special disability accommodation under the federal legislation, which is separate to any of our state regulations. Under the seniors housing, it's designed for two things: seniors or people with a disability. In this particular instance, been designed to meet the criteria for persons with a disability, meaning the persons with a disability would need to reside in, or people that reside with a person who has a disability, in 42 of the 45 residential apartments that have been proposed in this particular circumstance.
Councillor.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. I think I'm concussed, but anyway, that's okay.
You've got plenty of witnesses for a compact claim.
Being like myself, born and bred over there, and I remember Curum Avenue being a bustling little shopping centre with, the hardware store, the fish and chip shop. Got up to a lot of mischief over there. I remember when it closed down, we were on council, and it took us so long to get someone to do something about that site. I drove past there this morning. The grass is overgrown. It looks absolutely terrible. So having this sort of development go over there, I know it's probably not something we're used to, but we will get used to it. And having seniors living, I'm sure we could talk to the applicant about locking up maybe having a key system to the car park. But I think it's a great thing, especially for the seniors living. I find that very encouraging. So I think if we're going to clean up that site, I think this is a great way of doing it.
Thank you, Councillor Hamling. I'd just like to remind councillors that you have an update for this particular item. Condition 2 on page 150 has been amended, and condition 41 on page 156 has been amended as well. So you should all have a copy of that in your pink papers. They're just conditional changes. So we have a mover and a seconder. Any further speakers for or against? There not being any, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? The motion has been carried. We move on. We best ask Councillor Kinghorn to return to the chamber. Now we move on to item 2.3, development application DA 2782022, 80 Dean Drive. Recommendation is on 301. It's been moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Powell. Any discussion on this item? No discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? The motion has been carried. Item 2.3, development application DA 278. Oh, I've done that one, haven't I? Been a long day. 2.4, development application DA 277. 3 of the 5, Gateway Crescent, moved by Councillor Miletto, seconded by Councillor Hamling. Any discussion on this item? Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this development complements the commercial style of contemporary building designs which are already in the Gateway Crescent. I think one of the things which I do like about this development application is that there is a high demand for self-storage in Orange, and obviously these 282 self-storage units help meet that demand. So I'm happy to support.
Thank you, Councillor Miletto. Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, I've got the same. Councillor Miletto has it's a great. Shows that the general public and developers huge interest.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Or should I say Senator Duffy, after 40's given you a pay rise? Yeah, Senator.
Some people know what they're talking about.
About that, 40 might debate that too. All righty, any further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put that motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. We move on to item 2.5, development application DA 507, 314 Anson Street.
Move the
Recommendation is on page 382 for refusal. It's been moved by Councillor Mallard.
Mr. Chair.
Seconded by Councillor McDonald. Any discussion? Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just to thank the staff for the efforts that they've put in. Clearly, we had this before us in March, I believe it was. They've attempted to give an opportunity to resolve it. The staff have attempted to continue reaching out. We don't have any new information or an amended application, so the only thing is refuse it.
Thank you. Councillor Duffy, I see you put your hand up.
Chairman, I'm in agreement with the actual speaker that said that molten scale, privacy and all those issues that are actually mentioned. Which I think.
Bless you. Thank you. Any further speakers? Councillor Leto, sorry. I'm not used to councillors not standing up, mate.
Okay, not that important. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support the recommendation. I actually satisfied myself. Actually went up there today to have a look after reading the papers, and initially I was thinking about asking for an adjournment to give all councils the opportunity to go and have a look at the site. But as soon as I pulled up out the front and I realised close proximity to where this building was going to go and the sheer visual bulk encroachment on those other houses, to go 2 metres above the standard, just I couldn't do it. It was just wasting people's time. So I'm happy to support the recommendation based on my inspection of the site today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leonard. There being no further discussion, I put the motion. All those in favour, raise your hand. Against? Motion is carried. Point 6, planning proposal to amend Orange Local Environment Plan 2011. Been moved by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Peterson. Any discussion on this item? Being no discussion, I put the... Oh, you want to speak, Councillor, please?
Only to say we must be a big city when we've got 3 car washes now.
3 car washes, yeah. Well, we're lazy. Then again, it's a good way to preserve water, much more efficient. Alrighty, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, councillors. That concludes the Planning Committee at 9 minutes past 7. And I'll invite Councillor Mileto to do the Economic Development Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten. I would like to open the Employment and Economic Development Policy Committee meeting at 7:30 p.m. I don't think there are any declarations of interest, per curiam otherwise. Let's go to section number 2, item 2.1, minutes of the Sister City Community Committee meeting held on the 29th of November 2022. There's a recommendation on page 5. Do I have a mover and a seconder?
Peter seconded.
Evans and seconded by Councillor Greenhalgh, was it?
Me.
Thank you. My apologies. Is there any discussion on this item?
I would just like to thank you, Mr. Chair. Just thank the committee for taking this on. I tried to put up a motion about this Friendship City with the Ukraine to council several months ago, and was told that this would go into the Sister City committee, and I thank the chair and the committee for taking that on and acting on it.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just through you, just wanted to know what the ballpark cost of the staff exchange with Timaru Council is in New Zealand, mentioned on page 15.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The cost will essentially be airfares, as the host city will pay for accommodation and expenses, food, etc. when they're there. So I would think per trip, say $3,000.
Any other speakers? There being none, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any against? Carried. Before I conclude, councillors, I would just like to pass on my thoughts to all the students, parents, and teachers at Glenroy Public School after that terrible fire which occurred up there last night. I know that speak on behalf of not only myself but obviously other people here in the chamber. Just wanted to know that our thoughts are with them. It's a terrible thing, and we are there to support them. So,
make it quick.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Yes, I went up and had a look this morning, and yeah, when you go up there, it's pretty devastating what you actually look at. That school's doing a fantastic job up there. So many programs going on there. The staff do an amazing job, like they do in every other educational institution. But the staff up there, go that extra mile for the students up there. I know there's a police investigation underway. We can't jump to any conclusions, so we'll wait till we see what the end result is of that. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Just reminded me, I did read something on the Central Western Daily website that there was some homeschooling going on, and I guess what it did make me think about at the time is that there are some families up there who wouldn't have access to electronic devices, and I'm wondering, Councillor Powell.
Was you finished, Mr. Chair?
Thank you for that.
Sorry. Yeah, I'd just also like to congratulate.
No, I was going to finish. Oh, sorry.
The Glenroy Community Centre, and seeing all of those wonderful teachers and children, and especially the centre and especially the staff there. The council too, being a part of that and creating an environment that is, in this horrific time, as what yourself and already mentioned. And I'd just like to extend that thank you to also the staff of Orange City Council at the Glenroy Community Centre. Thank you.
I think sometimes we take for granted that those electronic devices are available, but it's encouraging to hear that the community centre are catering for those students who are able to go there. So thank you for that message. Is there anybody else want to make a comment in regards to that? There being none, well, thank you, Council. That concludes the Employment and Economic Development Policy Committee meeting, with the time now being 7:35 p.m, and I call upon Councillor Evans to conduct the Infrastructure Policy Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Mileto. I'll open the Infrastructure Policy Committee meeting for the 6th of December, at the time being 7:32. I don't believe there were any declarations of interest from the councillors, so I'll move on to item 2.1. I have a motion on page 6 for the City of Orange Traffic Committee. I have a mover. Thank you, Councillor Floyd. Second by Councillor Mileto. Any discussions on the Traffic Committee minutes? Councillor Whitten.
Mr. Chairman. I've had a number of approaches from residents who live in Phillip Street near the pedestrian crossing that joins Bletchington School. Apparently they've received a letter to tell them that they can no longer park in front of their houses. Pedestrian crossing has been dated. I don't see anything in the minutes of the Traffic Committee, so I don't know whether it's come from the Traffic Committee or it's an old. But yeah, I wonder if I could get the Director who's on his way. Thank you, Mr. Director.
Mr. Greenham.
Thank you, Councillor. I will take that on notice and circulate a response tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Mr. Director.
Thank you, Director. Any other discussion on the Traffic Committee minutes?
Yeah,
Councillor
Mr. Chair,
Floyd.
Just a point of clarification, if I could, Mr. Chair. Just in this recommendation here, number 2, looks like item 3.3. 3.3, number 2, Council supports a temporary lifting of no stopping restrictions, dated 19th of November. I know that the minutes of this were held on the 8th of November, but can you shed any light on why we're getting this now, like in retrospect?
Councillor Floyd.
Yeah, thank you. Very good question, Councillor Floyd. What we've got here is a community event, a rodeo that was held on or about the 19th of November, and it was endorsing a speed restriction while that event was happening. We do it for a number of events at the showground. It's not unusual if they haven't given us enough time to consider their request that it be considered by the Traffic Committee, which includes Police and Transport for New South Wales, and then and as well as a council representative, then to have it ratified by council after the event. But generally, we try and get these applications in much earlier, and so that we can bring it up to council and you can comment on it before the event.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Greenhouse.
Just through you, Mr. Chair, just a matter arising. I've got some continuing concern on the footpath from Canobolas Caravan and Marine, well, much to the motel site on Bathurst Road.
Yep.
It's very narrow, and on a number of occasions now, as I've been coming back into town, I see people in their mobility scooters and so forth coming down the highway, and it's only a matter of time until someone, might have an accident. So I think if it could be noted that we could investigate and just have a bit of a look down there. It's very narrow and there is some humpy bits, so that's obviously why they do it. But yeah, I think we need to address those concerns.
Yep. Do we know where that's at in our current schedule of works? Any scheduled upgrades?
No, but I will follow up with the operational staff and get a comment circulated back to council.
Thank you.
Councillor Mato.
Yeah, thank you. Just to add to the director's comments regarding to that item which was raised, part of the reasoning was the reason why there was a speed restriction implemented, which is similar to when they have the show, was because at the time, all the rain we had, vehicles weren't able to park inside the showground, and that caused them to be parked out on the street, Leeds Parade, Phillip Street, and that. So obviously, that became an issue with regards to pedestrian safety, areas for vehicles with disabilities, things like that. So that was the reason. Part of the reason also is because they weren't able to access the showground, especially those larger vehicles, because of how wet it was. They would have just got bogged. So alternate arrangements had to be made. It had to be made that level.
Thank you. Any other comments? Being none, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Thank you. I'll move on to the next item, 2.2, minutes from the Orange Combine Road Safety Committee meeting, 19th of October, page 35. Move Councillor Duffy, second Councillor Floyd. Any discussion on this item? You find it? No discussion. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Move on to item 2.3. Bear with me. Thank you, Councillor Duffy.
Page 67.
Page 67. Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Do I have a mover for the motion for the Extraordinary City of Orange Traffic Committee meeting?
Happy to move
Councillor
that, Mr.
Peterson,
Chair.
thank you. Second, Councillor McDonald, thank you. Any discussion on the item? There being none, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Move on to the final item, which will be the works report.
The recommendation.
78, moved by Councillor Whitten, second Councillor Mallard, thank you. Any discussion on the current works? Councillor Whitten.
Just that, Mr. Chairman, yourself and I attended the airport conference a few weeks ago, and I have to say it was a magnificent event. Thing that I came away with was how strategic and important an asset we have with our airport. The airports that were all airports were represented, and they were represented by the owners of those airports, which we own our airport. So it was just something that we need to recognise and probably come up with some further strategies through the CEO at how we can further utilise that asset that we have, very strategic asset for Orange, being the airport.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten. I'll just follow up Councillor Whitten's comments as well, having attended the conference in Adelaide, that even walking through the trade show with our staff, they are very much in mind, particularly considering our ongoing increasing numbers. The staff are very aware of how many people we're moving through and actively looking at what do we need to implement security-wise as our numbers continue to grow. So it's a credit to our staff and the job they're doing out there as well. Any other comments on the current works? Councillor Peterson.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I've got 3 questions through yourself. I'll do them sort of one at a time, which might make it easier. Obviously, these rain events have impacted road maintenance. Is there anything council can do to assist with working this time in terms of provision of resources or money, particularly if I imagine part of the road maintenance resources have probably been loaned to other nearby councils in a worse state than us?
Yeah, certainly. We've got the resources we have, and thank you for your question, Councillor Peterson. And they're all busy attending to road damage around the area. We've got a fair bit of catch up to do, and obviously we were also assisting, as you mentioned, Gabon Council for a period of time there as well. Not necessarily with road repairs, but with clean up and getting Eugowra utilities back online. So yeah, there was some, I suppose, a slight disruption for that week while we attended to those things, but we still had a maintenance crew running around. We have had the announcement from the state's pothole repair fund, and councillors will recall that I had estimated that we would receive in the order of $156,000 from that fund. I believe it's now close to $186,000 that we've actually received. And any request for additional funding will come through the quarterly review process as and when it's appropriate.
Thank you. The other question I had was on page 87. The airport passenger numbers talks about flights for passengers on Rex, Link Airways and Qantas. Yes. I've been to the airport twice in the past fortnight. Both times there's been a big charter plane there flying from Orange to Groote Eylandt. Are charter flights a significant number of passengers, and if so, should they be included in those tallies?
It's a significant number, but we don't actually charge per passenger for charter flights. Charter flights are charged on the weight of the aircraft coming in and out. I could provide, if councillors wish, staff would have details of what flights have been in and out of there that are a charter basis. I could provide a summary of those to councillors if it's something you'd like to see.
Key Director. Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you. Going to you as regards to the natural disasters. What I do know, is there any chance of extending that funding to guarantee the, and I'm talking about the perilous I drive on there. Absolutely annihilated, wasn't it? That we as a council grade them so that
certainly our staff are working closely with Transport for New South Wales, and those Transport for New South Wales team administers the Betterment Fund that looks at building back better. Obviously, we're a light touch with some potholes and loss of seal compared with some that have had significant landslips across their road network. So I would imagine that will be triaged around those types of activities before it's actually triaged against potholes and losing seal as such. But that being said, we'll certainly apply for whatever we can, and the staff are working closely with Transport for New South Wales staff on that matter.
Okay. Thank you, Director. Councillor Kinghorn.
Through you, Mr Chair, to the Director, 2 questions. One also about roads. I realise that all the water's been unprecedented and that's caused a lot of problems, but I'm curious about what we do to try and make the roads more resilient when we do redo them. Is there research going on? What do we know about what we can do to change things by using different bases? Or I believe that we've tried mixing old tyres in with the top, that sort of thing. What information's available about what works? Do we have anything new?
Absolutely. So you've touched on a couple of them there. You'll find a lot of our pavements around the city are built on rather than a crushed gravel base, they're built out of other materials. So they're ridge gravels or sandstone gravels. Some of them are limestone gravels that are highly susceptible to moisture and aren't necessarily the best control. So what we have done is with all of our new works and any of the works that are being conducted by developers, we require them to test the deflection on those before they're handed over to council or before we put the final seal on, so that we know that what's being built will actually perform. So that's one checkpoint in there that we've got for all of our new roads. There's a whole range of things. We do own our own stabilising machine, so we can blend other materials back in with the road. Even some of those I suppose slightly clayier roads can have a lime added into them. They can, if they're fairly fine gravels, we can add a fairly coarse base and make sure that the I suppose what you call the grading curve on those gravels is appropriate to produce a long-lasting and durable base. We've also done some foam bitumen stabilisation, particularly on the pavement that goes past our cemetery on Lone Pine Avenue. That foam bitumen stabilisation is one that's extremely resilient to water ingress. So it's the bitumen that's contained within the matrix of that stabilised base repels the moisture and makes it a very resilient pavement. So all these things come at a cost, but we're certainly trialling things all the time.
Thank you. My second question relates to the conical caps on the services sewer and whatever those purple things and on the place. The one near the Lombardy Way Dog Park, it's at a 45-degree angle. I'm just wondering whether that makes a difference to how it works, or because normally they're
flat. Yes, I'd imagine someone's driven over the edge of it or something like that, and it's tilted it up at 45
It's just really
degrees.
wet there. I don't know. I think it might just be
It's very
from
wet,
the water. Yeah. So do they still work or?
Yeah, they still work. Essentially, yeah, it's just a surround for a lid essentially, and the whatever's underneath, whether it be a hydrant or a stop valve, is still accessible. But to make it accessible, they do have to level out the lid. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hemming.
Yeah, just very quickly, I just want to have a shout out to the staff that were seconded out to Eugowra to help out and into Cabon basically to help out. From my reports, it was they did a fantastic job, and that invitation is still open to Cabon if they need anything from us. We're quite happy to help in any way.
Thank you, Councillor Hemming. Any other comments? Being none, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Thank you.
Just a matter arising, if I may, through the chair, I might just comment that we are still providing some engineering support to Cabon, and on an as-needs basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. I'll close the Infrastructure Policy Committee meeting, time being 8:47. I'll hand over to Councillor.
7:48.
Right.
Dyslexic.
Sports and Rec.
Queensland time, Jack.
The little things.
Close.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Being 7:49, I would like to open the Sport and Recreation Policy Committee meeting on the 6th of December 2022. Item 1.1, does any councillor have any interest? Declarations? Okay, so item 2.1, the minutes of the committee meeting. Just before I put that up to be moved, can I just note for the staff, item 2.2, Community Committee as its meeting, could we just remove the words its meeting? Community Committee at its meeting held. No, that's all right. Don't worry about that. Sorry, I misread that. It's all correct. Sorry, my apologies. So I have the recommendation on page 5. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please?
Happy to move that.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Thank you, Councillor Power. Just before I go, I'd just like to also take this opportunity to, as you guys all know, I do have family at Eugara, so I would like to thank our staff. Oh, sorry, can I have a mover and a seconder?
Got a mover and a seconder, you just need to put the vote.
Just have a show of hands. So yeah, I'd just like to take the opportunity to personally thank our council staff for all their support to the flood victims in Eugara. I was in constant contact with our CEO and he was more than accommodating. Also, just a special thank you to, yes, to one of our other councillors here who kindly donated some items to go out. I won't single them out. They know who they are. So thank you once again to everyone. And I would now like to call on Councillor Mallard for the conduct of the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee.
Just for the audience, the matter of the aviary will be dealt with in this committee coming up.
Thanks, Councillor Greenhalgh. I will declare the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee meeting for the 6th of December open with the time being 7:51 p.m. Does any councillor have a pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest or less than significant non-pecuniary interest in any matter listed for consideration at this meeting? Being none, I'll move to item 2.1, minutes of the Environmental Sustainability Community Committee meeting held the 2nd of September.
Happy to move that, Mr Chair.
Thank you. Got a mover for the recommendation, Councillor McDonald. Can I get a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Evans. Any discussion on this item? No discussion. All in favour? Anyone against? Carried. Okay, that brings us to item 2.2, minutes of the Parks, Trees and Waterways Community Committee held 13th of October.
Move it, Mr Chair.
27.
Happy to move it, Mr Chair.
Thanks. Recommendation moved by Councillor McDonald. Can I have a seconder? I need a seconder first. Councillor Power. You.
I'd like to make an amendment. I guess we go to page, I think it is page 8 on Parks, Trees and Waterways, which is the recommendation there. I don't have any problem with one. Parks, Trees and Waterways. Sorry, 3.1 of the tree. Our streets in Road, Fox Avenue, McLaughlin Street, and there's dead trees, big ones there that need to come out. And should get on. Let's move forward. I come back to here now, which I come to the recommendation, which is 3.2, which is phase 1, removal of the aviary. I'd like that eradicated, and my recommendation. That the Cook Park aviary remain in Cook Park and be included in the Cook Park master plan. Our view options to improve or redesign the Cook Park aviary for the 2023-24 budget. And Orange Bird Society be included and consulted in all options.
I'll second that, Mr Chairman.
Okay, do we have...
Through you, Mr Chair, I think we've got that. I think under 3.2, within number 2, under phase 1, we'll remove the words removal of the aviary, and then perhaps at the end of phase 3, we'll add the sentence that Councillor Duffy just added, and then we'll have a separate point 2. That would take care of it.
So we've got the amendment?
That is the amendment.
Tonight that we had
talk about history, 100 years. We spoke about one of the main attractions. We spoke about Montama for the elderly. We spoke of the services of the community that council provides. We spoke about rehabilitation. We spoke about people with disability. We spoke about Australia Day. These are the coming from the community that were there. There's a lot of other issues that they spoke about. To cut it a little bit short, because I think we all heard what they all said. Even our local member, the local state member, is 100% saving this bird aviary. But today, lucky enough, I drove a bus. The bus had about 71 students on it at James Sheen from year 7 to year 11, or basically, should I say, year 12. Before I took off from James Sheen, I said, "Hey, listen," and they dead set quiet. I said, "Council want to close the aviary. Do you agree, yes or no?" But open, the answer was yes, unanimously. Students hop down from most of the students get off at OPS primary school. The primary school kids come on, about 24, 25 of them. And I asked them, do you want the aviary closed? And they said, no, we were up there today. We love the birds. So there's a clear message coming from the community. We've copped a bit of a hammering over the last couple of years as regards to how we've been treating the public. But this is one thing where we'll get another hammering if you want to close this down. All councillors to support this. I just want to give you a bit of an indication. The speaker here tonight, forward. He is responsible. Him and his committee were responsible for bringing the biggest bird sale in Australia to Orange. Also, he was responsible, which can be argued that the biggest bird sale in the Southern Hemisphere. Volunteer. Valued member of our society. Not only was he a sponsor of major sports throughout the city, everything. He also has an iconic father. If you're looking for someone to name a street after, it should be a Pat Ford Street. That's a different issue. But I urge you, councillors, to support this, because I can tell you, you will get hammered if you try to get rid of this aviary. We had this discussion in 2013, and I'm a bit surprised that it's still in there, that it's remained there, because I know myself, the first thing that I spoke against, so did Councillor Taylor, so did Councillor Kidd a number of times. I know it was brought in by Councillor Neil Jones. But we hammered it down at that time, and I'm really surprised that it's still there. But I'm not going to go down that pathway. Let's move forward and let's move on. I have, if you go out on that board out there, look on the side there where my mate Tubby is sitting out there listening, you'll see one name on that board out there, which is not very far from where this park is, and it's called Duffy. It's 1864. That's how long my family, and even longer, that we've been around here in the central west of the region. We value this city. It's why I complain about cramping up our city and all these type of things. But my family are coming up from Sydney, they're coming out from Condobolin and all these other places, and they love going to the park. They go down to the fish and chip shop, go up to the park, take their kids. We had a family reunion, 2 family reunions, actually, one for my wife. Where did they go to the night before they come out? Took their family and they took their kids, and they loved it. I'm urging you, councillors. I had another cousin who took her elderly parents there, 88 and 90, both of them there, and one of them suffered seriously from dementia. But guess what? I don't know much about dementia, but I know they can go back and remember things in the park. And her father spoke to the cockatoo and all those type of things there, and he could go back and relate to it. What better rehabilitation for him and the whole community it could be for the people of Wantama and those people who suffer that injury. I think it's time, councillors, we started to listen to the general public on a lot of things, and we haven't been doing that very well. A little bit dismayed with the way this came forward through a committee meeting. I've spoken to the general manager about the way we bring these things in, but I just want to go back and urge you again to actually support remaining the aviary there, and invite the volunteers from the Bird Society to help us out, because they're heaps of volunteers, and they are free and they are valuable. But an example of what an option could be, we lease Conservatorium for $1 a week $1 a week. One of the options could be, why can't we lease it to the aviary people for $1 a week? There's plenty of options there. But let's save that aviary for the people of Orange and the district. I've had phone calls from everywhere. Dubbo, Victoria, Queensland, Sydney, cower everywhere. People saying, hey, what are you doing? I've had former state MLCs make comment. What's wrong with these people? So I'm urging you, councillors, to support. Save that. Avery.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Okay, so we've got the amendment before the chamber.
Sorry, could we have that amendment?
I'll
I've
read
forgotten what the amendment was.
Okay, if councillors could look at the recommendation on page 27, I'll attempt to tell you what the amendment is.
Page 28.
28, sorry, thank you. Help. Okay, so recommendation 1 will be the same. 2...
It won't be.
Excuse me, councillor, I'm attempting this. 1 will be the same. Council will acknowledge the reports to the Parks, Trees, Waterways Community Committee at its meeting. 2 will read the same, that council determine recommendations. 3.1, tree canopy coverage will stay the same. How am I going? Going well. 3.2, Cook Master Plan. 1 under there will say that council develops conceptual plans based on the following preferred phase list. Phase 1. Now I've removed the dot point that says removal of the aviary, and then everything stays the same until at the end of phase 3, I'm adding the aviary will remain and become part of the Cook Park Master Plan, and the Orange Bird Society, is that what they're called?
Right.
Will be consulted in the process. Now, point 2 below that will say that council endorse the Cook Park Conservation Management Plan and Tree Succession Plan as amended, because you've just amended it, and budget provision therefore. Gives us the money to do the concept design that's required. Make sense? We can work with that. That's what that's the amendment, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. CEO. Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I certainly endorse Councillor Duffy's concerns that he's raised. I guess what interests me is obviously this is an advisory committee who send recommendations back to council, and I think what this does show that gives us the opportunity to discuss these issues. And certainly what we need to understand is that at a committee level, advisory committee, that these type of decisions can't be made to remove this aviary. So it comes back to council, and obviously the decisions made here. And I certainly support the speakers, Margie Topman, Sue Dunshea and Tony Ford, who spoke on the issue, and they spoke about those things which concern and the benefits with regards to education, mental health and the like. One of the things which did interest me was issue regarding a comment from CEO regarding the allocation of staff to the aviary. There was some concerns raised with regards to the condition, and there was some suggestion that the aviary may not have been adequately cared for. I'm just wondering whether the CEO could give us some insight into what actually does get done up there at the aviary to maintain it to an acceptable standard.
I'm afraid I'll have to take that on notice, okay, and come back to you with what the cleaning regime is. Unless Mr. Maunder's got his hand up. Have you got some insights? Why don't you text it to me and I'll read it out for the sake of the audience.
Go on to other amendment. Waiting.
You
Why
won't
don't
be
you
long.
just stand up and come to the
Just tell me
microphone?
what
It'll
it
take just as long.
Here we go. A full clean once or twice a week, seasonally dependent. Spot cleaning, yes, about 3 times a week. Checked daily for bird health, food and enrichment. These are rough estimates.
Thank you. And can I assume that when we talk about the bird club and that those members of the bird club or Mr. Ford are able to join the community committee and have an input as well as any other community member can?
Correct. If they put their hand up, I'm sure we let them into the community committee.
Thank you. That's
It's
all
a bit
I have.
late in the day, but we could. Of
Yeah.
course, the committee can let anyone in. Any ratepayer in, I think.
Nothing else, Councillor
resident,
Miletto?
sorry.
Yep. Thanks, Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you. I was just curious about the rationale for the removal. Is somebody able to enlighten me as to what the problem was? Was it to free the birds, or was it? I just would like to know if anybody knows. That would be great. It was really good to hear the speakers. I've got on my notes here when I read through the stuff that what happens to the existing birds and why can't it be used for birds rescued from with wires, and they were both addressed in the speakers. So thank you for that. But yeah, I'm just curious about why we were closing it in the first
Director
place.
Maunder is making his way up to crack at this one.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Councillor, the whole concept around in the master plan for Cook Park was really revisiting all that built infrastructure around the staff amenity there, the toilets, part of which is the aviary, the store and all those different elements to open up that section of the park. It's quite a heavy component of built infrastructure. Some of the concept thoughts was rather than having toilets in one spot, remove them from that spot and to have 2 cubicles in 3 or 4 places throughout the park. So you don't have to go to that spot to utilise amenities, for example. So that was some of the thinking around it. There was also some differing views about whether aviaries in today's society and, respecting different views of the community, obviously, but you asked why it was included as to potentially to be removed, whether they're appropriate in today's society, a big public aviary. You can argue it's a tourist attraction versus something else.
Yeah, how many of the birds in there are ones that, how often do new birds get put in there, and are they all injured birds or?
It varies. I don't know the exact number of the different species in there.
Okay.
Sorry, point of order. We can't.
Yeah, no, excuse us. Sorry, the open forum was earlier. We're not able to take comments from the audience.
So can I just inform you, Mr. Chairman, I have a foreshadowed motion if the amendment gets up.
So, as you've heard, Councillor, that we haven't received birds there for a while. It hasn't been an active process of council to seek out or accept new birds. Doesn't mean it can't happen. And you heard earlier tonight that the design is quite old. It's decade old. So there's different opportunities for that as well. So depends which way council wants to go with it.
Thanks, Director. Did you have anything more?
I just want if the aviary, if removal of the aviary is gone, like with this amendment, it doesn't happen, then how do we then, if the option is to put a new one there that is more appropriate, how does that fit in with the motion and the amendment?
I suppose it's a matter of what it is and where it goes. So there might be a contemporary design for an aviary that could go into a different area. You could separate it out. There's a whole range of different options. So concept plans could address those matters. One then needs to obviously fund whatever development is designed or conceived. And within that plan, the vehicular access to Cook Park is from Summer Street. So there's a proposal to change the vehicular access. So it was multifaceted around access to the path, pedestrian safety, opening up certain areas, changes into a contemporary design for those elements. So how big it is, where it goes, that they could be dealt with in a concept plan.
Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Kinghorn, nothing more?
Oh, no, that's all. Thank you.
Councillor Hamling?
Yeah, I just want to speak in favour of the amendment. I've had people contact me about this, but the thing that I think, if we've got a volunteer group who wish to take on and take care of the aviary and, come down and feed the birds and look after the birds and have a coffee there and what a great way to have that organisation be part of the park. So I think it's a great idea, and I like the idea of a bigger aviary, maybe a walk-through aviary, like an aquarium where you can go through and These sort of things we've got to look at. I think we need to look at all options, and they'll eventually come back to us to have a look at and costings, and maybe there's some grant funding out there. I don't know, but all those sort of things need to come back to us.
Thanks. Councillor Floyd.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I was originally voting against this proposal, but I will be voting for the amendment for this. After reading the master plan of the original master plan of 2013 and the review again in 2021, I'm a firm believer that most of the proposals in this plan, I think, are generally very good, very well thought out and very constructive. However, I do have an issue with the removal of the aviary for no apparent reason. I failed to find a reason for its removal in these documents other than for the proposed improvements from the Sampson Street entry and a walkway that barely intersects the southern corner of the aviary. Surely this was not a reason for the removal of this nearly 100-year-old structure. The report talks about history, family-friendly, attracting visitors and aesthetic significance, all of which this structure does provide. I can understand the removal of such a structure based on a state of disrepair causing possible safety risks or the inhabitants of the aviary being in such poor health, but neither of which I believe is currently an issue. So outside of this, there's absolutely no reason to remove this aviary whatsoever. The aviary's builders, one of the gentlemen whom I know quite well, his relatives were actually responsible for the building of the aviary. They're still in this area. They've got an affinity with this building, as does the families and the children that visit the park every day for the ducks and the birds. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Floyd. Councillor Greenhalgh, then Councillor McDonald.
I too would like to support the amendment on keeping the bird aviary. I think, a lot of us do have an emotional attachment to the aviary, but I think after hearing Sue's speech, mental health benefits that are free to community members by keeping the aviary there far outweigh anything else. So I think if, as a community, we can offer those to people for free, wouldn't we do it? Thank you.
Councillor Greenhalgh. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I'm the chair of the Parks, Trees and Waterways, and I just wanted to give a bit of background, really. So the community committee members were presented with this review of the 2013 master plan. That 2013 master plan was brought before Council on the 3rd of September to the Environment and Economic Development Policy Committee meeting, and that 2013 plan included the removal at some stage of the aviary. That motion was, that committee was chaired by Councillor Duffy, and the motion was moved by Councillor Kidd and seconded by the late Councillor Taylor. So that plan was actually adopted back then. Now this has been a review because obviously years went by, very little sort of traction was managed. So this came to the Parks, Trees and Waterways Committee. Our community members were asked to have a look at it. We were given a presentation by the...
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. This is not a debate this is about whether you're speaking against a motion or for a motion, not to give us a briefing session. Is the councillor speaking for the amendment, against the amendment or for the motion? Not briefing councillors on documents that they've read.
I think the councillor's got 5 minutes. She's entitled to speak in the debate.
Point of order. Is she speaking for the motion or against the motion, for the amendment or against the amendment? We read our papers. We don't need to be briefed.
This information was not included in the papers.
Did you want to clarify whether you're speaking for or against the amendment?
No, I'm speaking... Look...
No wonder this council's going to pack. God's sake, can't even run a chamber meeting.
Excuse me?
Beg your pardon, there are rules in the chamber. It's not a debate.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
We're not going to start interacting with the gallery. Thank you.
Can't run the meeting properly, so you're going to tell me how to
Point
react.
of order.
Thank you very much, councillor. What's your meeting?
Councillor McDonald has 5 minutes to speak in the debate on the amendment. She's entitled to provide background information if she considers it appropriate.
How to run a chamber meeting.
Point of order.
That's what we're doing. Going to run the meeting, Councillor? You going to pull people in order or not?
Councillor McDonald, would you
Everyone
like to go on?
I think it would be a good idea if we ever going to have a bit of a crack.
Let everyone have a go.
Councillor McDonald, if you want to go on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I feel that this, the reason I'm giving this background is because I feel that it's been seized upon by some in community as a way of drumming up support, and I understand that, and I'm all for community consultation. That's why we engage. But I'm giving you the background, saying that there were community members engaged in providing this.
Are you having a crack at me, are you?
Order, thanks. Councillor Duffy, you've had your chance to speak.
I have not. I haven't spoken against the motion. I've spoken for the amendment.
Debating the amendment at the moment, and you've already spoken on it, and we're going to allow one person to speak at a time.
Says learn how to run a meeting.
Would you like to refer to which clause of the Code of Meeting Practice is being breached?
Been around here long enough to know how it runs.
It's just the vibe, is it?
Or against? Or against?
All right. Would you like to continue, Councillor
Can
McDonald?
I just ask, is the councillor speaking for or against? So I know what the councillor is talking about. For the motion or against the motion? The amendment? or
We're
against
debating the amendment at the moment, yep. So
Is the councillor for or against? I think the audience would like to know as well. I don't know. I don't know what she's speaking for it or against it.
Point of order. This is a bit bullying.
I don't know if the councillor is speaking for or against. No.
Can we have a short
Under the
adjournment?
Code of Meeting Practice, the councillor should advise whether she is speaking for or against the motion.
There you go. I'm asking. I don't know.
okay, so if you're able to indicate whether you're speaking for or against the amendment, then you're able to continue with the debate on the
5 minutes is
amendment
up.
from there.
Can I please ask that we have a short adjournment?
Your call, Mr. Chair.
Take a short adjournment.
What we might do is ask all councillors to go to the Mayor's office through that door, thanks.
2.
Okay, we'll resume the meeting. Just as we begin, I will remind the audience in the gallery that we conduct an open forum. That's the opportunity for members of the gallery to speak, but from this point, you don't have an active role. You're welcome to stay and observe, but no more interjections, please. So we'll resume debate on the amendment. So Councillor McDonnell, you were speaking and you have the opportunity to indicate if you're speaking for or against the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, as the mover of the motion, I'm going to accept the amendment. My reasons for accepting the amendment are based on the fact that there's obviously needs to be more community consultation in how we retain the aviary. I was attempting to give some background into how we got to this point. Probably irrelevant, but community needs to be engaged better, and I'm happy to accept the amendment.
Thanks, Councillor McDonnell.
Point of clarification, Mr. Chairman, that means the actual amendment becomes a motion straight away.
Through Mr. Chair, no. You have to vote. You have to put the amendment. Councillors need to vote on that amendment.
So I was the mover, though. Can I not accept the amendment?
You're accepting it. Well, then.
Through the motion.
No, she didn't. She accepted the amendment, indicating she probably will be voting for the amendment.
Right.
The amendment, therefore, needs to be put, voted on. It would then, if successful, become the motion. Then you put the motion.
Okay, so
there
we
we
still
go.
do that.
Yeah, we still need to go through that process.
Procedurally? Okay. Any other speakers? Okay. There being no other speakers, then I'll put the amendment. All in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, the amendment becomes the motion, so I'll put the motion now. All in favour? Against? The motion is carried.
So I'll just explain to the audience, if you don't mind, Chair. So, audience, Councillor Duffy's amendment became the motion and has been passed, what I read out before.
Just a advice, Mr. Chairman, as I withdraw my motion.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. All right, we'll move to item 2.3, minutes of the Parks, Trees and Waterways Committee, Community Committee held 17th of November.
Happy to move that, Mr. Chair.
45, thanks, Councillor McDonnell. Councillor Floyd seconding. Thank you. Is there any discussion on this item? Being no discussion, I'll put the motion. All in favour? And against? Carried. Okay, thanks, councillors. That concludes the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee meeting at 8:30. I'll call on Councillor Duffy to conduct the Finance Policy Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Mallard. Now, could declare the Council Finance Policy meeting open, and I call for any declarations and pecuniary interest of significance.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, on item 2.2, number 1, the $500 to Orange High as I'm a staff member.
To deal with that, we might deal with them either one at a time,
We could
or
do
we
it-
can deal with the bulk and just leave that one out, or deal with that before you.
Yeah.
We now, being that declaration, we now move on to 2.1, which is quarterly external grants report. Ask the CEO to make a comment first.
On the
So
on the
wishes.
quarterly review, thank you, Chair. This is a quarterly review report which involved councillors' mini budget. You'll recall that process we went through. So it contains those extra projects which we discussed, including the showground structural works, the shade cloths over various playgrounds, the start of the aquatic centre expansion project, where architects will now look at expanding the Hill Street facility. You'll recall, council threw in $200,000 of extra patching for roads. The community of Lucknow were provided with an extra $200,000 in curb and guttering on the southern side. The Jack Brabham park, soccer fields were given an extra $90,000 in shelters, and council begins the journey, as they say, into getting a splash park at Moulder Park on the old netball courts. It was generally a positive quarterly review where I think operationally we moved forward, we got into a better position for various factors. But it is the first quarterly review, so it tends to be slightly
Thank you, Mr. CEO.
premature.
I'll now call for a mover and a seconder. Mover and Councillor Peterson, seconding Councillor Floyd. Any discussion?
Yes.
Councillor Peterson.
Look, I just want to place on record my thanks to the staff who apply for these grants. Small way, I'm aware for the effort that goes into the grants, having done several for the Orange Mountain Biking Club. There are many grants there, many of them successful. Just wanted to say thank you.
Councillor Greenhill.
Just a quick typo just to get fixed up on page 8. In one of them it says we applied for 57 grants. The other one just there says 60. I think they're both supposed to read 60.
8. Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Being no further discussion, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, raise your hand. Unanimous. Now move on to 2.1, which we'll do with point 1, so the Mayor has to leave the room.
May I make
Finish throwing the chair at me.
Again.
I please move that these be discussed individually.
I'll second it.
Councillors, we're dealing with 2.1, which is the 2.2, but it's dot point 1 in the donations of Orange High School. Someone like to move that? Move Councillor Evans, seconded Councillor Greenhalgh.
Mr. Chair, can I just interject for 1 second? I've just been pointed out there's actually I actually have an interest in one of these with Newcrest, which I missed earlier on. My apologies. I'd like to leave the room for that particular one in regards to Newcrest Valley, Cadia Valley operations.
I'm going to take notice of that.
If I could, thank you,
And
sir.
we might deal with that the next. Okay. Any discussion? The only comment I'd like to make is we do this every year and we support our schools in their presentation for their excellence, especially of some of the students. I'll put that. Any further discussion? All those in favour, raise your hand. Those against? Unanimous. All the Mayor back in. I'll get him. Which is dot point 1. Council will now move on to dot point 6 because Councillor Floyd has declared an interest in that. While he leaves the room. And just for your information, while Councillor Floyd's leaving the room, Mr. Mayor, the donation to Orange High School has been accepted. Okay, Councillor Floyd has left the room. There's a recommendation to accept the withdrawal of Newcastle Cadia Valley operations. Do we have a mover? Move Councillor Greenhalgh, seconded Councillor Evans. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, raise your hand. Unanimous. Councillor Floyd, return. Councillor Floyd, while you're coming back to your seat, the recommendation of dot point 6 was accepted. Councillors, now, do you want to deal with 2, 3, 4, 5 and 7 as a hot block? Or do you want to separate?
I would like to move that they be looked at individually, please.
Separated?
Yes, please.
Okay. With that, we'll move into item number 2, donation of $500 to Orange Christian School. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Move Councillor Peterson, seconded Councillor Greenhalgh. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour, raise your hand. Unanimous. Dot point 3, donate $1,000 and $100 to grow to assist in running costs of the Orange Grow Group, who run weekly peer support meetings for local recovering mental health.
Happy to move that.
Ill health, sorry. We have a mover by Councillor Miletto, seconded by Councillor Greenhalgh. Do we have any discussion?
Yes,
Councillor
Mr.
Peterson.
Chair. The group has requested $1,100 to pay for the hall hire of a council property. Could we just not charge them a hall hire fee or peppercorn rent and then not have that money come out of the $60,000 budget?
CEO or the Finance Director?
I might ask Director Rob to get involved in this one. I always find this question quite abstract.
Peterson, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we could do that. We could just give them, on Council's approval, that in-kind support, which means that there would be not an expense of the $1,100 out of that fund that would remain. However, it just means we won't receive the income from that high fee. It would not actually reduce the amount in that fund by $1,100.
With that, Councillor Peterson?
I am, and I guess I would like to move then and amend, and that's what we do.
I'm going to put that recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Can I make a...
Do you want to make an amendment that we do?
Well, hold on. What number are we on? What number?
Three.
Three. So it's 3 is printed as just
Is
been
it-
amended, Councillor Peterson, without a seconder. So there's a seconder there. So there's an amendment now with a
Is the
seconder.
mover of the motion happy to accept that, of the original motion? And the seconder willing to accept that?
I'd like to make an
I
amendment.
see no harm in that. You happy with that?
No.
Okay, we'll separate them.
I'd like to make an amendment to that.
We have an amendment. The amendment is to do exactly what Councillor Peterson and advised by the Director. All those in favour of the amendment? Sorry, do you want to speak to the amendment?
I want to make an amendment to the amendment.
That means you want to foreshadow an
So I
amendment.
want to foreshadow an amendment.
Okay.
Okay. We'll put the amendment.
Yep.
All those in favour of the amendment? Unanimous?
The amendment becomes
Now,
a motion.
it becomes a motion, and now we have a shadowed amendment.
Yeah, I'd just like to give a shadowed amendment that $1,100 it's diverted to the Glenroy Public School for a fun day when they go back after the fires. That's all. I think the community up there are really struggling at the moment with regards to a number of issues. I think I would like to do something up there for a fun day. Go back to school on the day that they're able to, whether that's by way of a barbecue or a jumping castle or something like that.
Okay.
To
There's a point of clarification, Councillor Meadow. It is not aligned with the actual resolution. It's a new motion, so I'm quite happy to accept your motion.
thank you.
And is the second happy with that?
Clarify. I think Councillor Miletto might have just invented point 8. Motion point 8.
Happy to.
Point 8. City, with a seconder in Councillor Evans. So the hall, need to deal with the hall amendment, which was 1 and became the motion. Hall fees are waived. There's now a new point 8.
New point 8. Happy to move on with that.
Let's go with that.
Okay, Councillor Peterson has now the motion and is now call for those in favour of the motion. No discussion. All those in favour, raise your hand. Thank you. Unanimous.
3 is away.
Now move on to dot point 4 to donate $717.50, which is 50% of the accommodation fees of the Colour City Caravan Park for 3 bush poet judges in the 2023 Banjo Patterson Festival. We have a mover and a seconder. We have a mover in Councillor Floyd, second in Councillor Greenhalgh. Any discussion? The only comment I'll make that this has been happening quite a number of years, that we have looked after the judges that come from various different places, and they really do a lot better than they do. Really struggle a little bit. We haven't given them an A1 class accommodation, have we? Okay, I'm going to put that, even no further speakers, I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour say, raise your hand. Unanimous. Move on to dot point 5.
With a clarification, Mr. Chair, on this one? Before we vote, can I have a point of clarification
On which one?
number 5?
Yes, quite happy. You can even get clarification after it's been moved. We have a mover and seconder for dot point 5.
Move.
Councillor Floyd, seconded by Councillor Kinghorn. Councillor Miletto, you have a point of clarification.
Just with regards to the amount, I have no issue with the amount because they provide a wonderful service to those people in need. I guess my question is what is the maximum amount of money which can be provided under that general donations and grant program?
20.
See,
Director's coming up. Yep.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe it's $10,000, but I will go back and just confirm that.
Thank you.
any discussion on the recommendation? Councillor Peterson.
Yes, I think this is a worthy cause. I do just want to bring to the Chamber's attention that $10,000 represents 1/6 of the total funding for Community Grants Program, which covers many other worthy causes. I'm also concerned this might be an annual request because the need for this amount will exist every year. I'd like to know a little bit more about, as this has been going for a couple of years, how this $10,000 shortfall was funded in previous years, given it represents 40% of the budget. And my amendment, which I'd like to move, is that we allow the category maximum, which is $2,500, and then any subsequent requests for further funding could be made after a bit of a discussion about the long-term arrangements to make this a sustainable project.
So councillor's asking for an amendment to defer. Sorry, I was reading.
Oh no, to give the category maximum, which is $2,500
yes.
dollars, and then further funding requests after a bit of discussion with the organisation about how we can make this a sustainable long-term thing. That, I mean, otherwise $10,000. That's what the council supports Orange Food Week. It's a lot of money.
Okay. No, I think it's just a simple amendment for tonight, $2,500, and then discussions with the applicant.
Do you have a seconder for the amendment?
Yeah, I'm happy to second the amendment.
Councillor Miletto. Any discussion on the amendment? Greenhalgh.
I've just got a question. In the past, in 2020, we donated 10,000, and on page 20, it actually states there, the maximum donation amount can be exceeded for not-for-profit organisations working with the vulnerable. I'd think this would be one of those circumstances, and I'd hate to see people going hungry in our community. So, yeah, I'm going to speak against the amendment.
Further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put the amendment. All those in favour of the amendment, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Against? Yeah, the amendment carried.
Amendment's
Sorry, my apologies. I've declared the amendment lost. Now to move on the motion. Move the motion. All those in favour of the motion?
Motion for 10,000. Yep.
Unanimous. Now move on to dot point 6, which we've already dealt with. Dot point 7, accept the return of the $1,200 donation for the Pinnacle Abreast Dragons Pinnacle Drag Boat Club. Moved by Councillor Hamling, seconded by
Second that.
Councillor McDonald. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, raise your hand. Unanimous. Now move on to dot point 8, which is moved by Councillor Miletto.
And also have relatives that work at Glenroy School.
Dot point 8 says that. Councillor Miletto, can you help us? $1,000 be given?
Yeah, that the 1,100, which was going to be provided to the GROW to assist, now be diverted. Glenroy Public School provide for a fund A or as required by the school.
Okay,
we have a seconder for that, don't we? Do we?
Councillor Evans did that. Yep.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Now, please note that the mayor left the room. Declared an interest. Okay. Any discussion on dot point 8? No discussion. I'm going to put that recommendation. All those in favour say raise your hand. Unanimous. Now we move on to councillors. We'll let the mayor come back in. To 2.3 events program.
While you're sitting down, Mr Mayor, the motion was passed. Now move on to 2.3, event sponsorship. There's a recommendation on page 43. Someone like to move that recommendation? Move, Councillor Floyd.
Happy to second.
Seconded, Councillor Peterson. Discussion? Being no discussion, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, raise your hand. I haven't counted yet.
Just on the Food Week one, so we're committing to the sponsorship of $10,000 for the next 3 years. Correct?
That's the way I read it.
I'd like to move an amendment that we sponsor this year, but have a report back next year of how it goes financially before we commit to 3 years.
Happy to second that.
Been seconded by Councillor McDonald. As an amendment, we happy with that? I'll put the amendment. No discussion? Put the amendment. If you're in favour of the amendment, raise your hand. Amendment's unanimous, and we now call that along to the motion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise your right hand. Clear, carried unanimously. Move on to 2.4, which is South Court Summer Sound site waive request. There's a recommendation there that the booking fee of 10 free performances by the band Fig Jam during the summer months.
There's the recommendation.
Happy to second
by
that,
Councillor
Mr Chair.
Mallard, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Any discussion? Being no discussion, I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour, raise your hand. Unanimous. Now, no further matters for finance. I now call on Councillor McDonald to do the Services Policy Committee. The time being, tell me,
8:49.
8:49.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Open the Services Policy Committee meeting on the 6th of December 2022 with the time being 8:50 p.m. Item 1.1, does any councillor have any pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest or less than significant non-pecuniary interest in any matter listed? Nope, easy done. Item 2.1, minutes of the NAIDOC Week committee meeting of the 13th of October. Recommendation is on page 5, sorry. Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Floyd. Any discussion?
I'd like to say something.
Sure.
Mr. Chair. I'd just like to appreciate the NAIDOC committee and also Orange City Council. It was one of the largest events participated in from the start with the theatre, the arts and crafts and stuff that are there, and then unfortunately the March day was washed out, but then still had the privilege of actually moving over to the function centre, which was carried out, and then all numbers and events were actually come back quite significantly, and finishing off on the NAIDOC Award Night, which acknowledged the councillors that attended that, which was really good, and appreciated all the planning. This coming Thursday, we'll be having a debriefing, then unpacking that, so those minutes will be coming up too. But thanks for everybody, especially the councillors. I think it was all there, the mayor was there. So it was really great to have a really great night, and just to celebrate the wonderful theme, get up, stand up and show up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and I'll second that. It was a great night, the awards night, and congratulations on your acknowledgement from the community for the work you do. Alrighty, any other discussion?
Arising when it's...
Yep, Councillor Mileto.
I'm just looking at the notes, an email which I sent during the week, and is it my understanding that the next NAIDOC meeting is going to be held at the Over Tavern?
Yes.
It's wondering, policy-wise, whether ending the policy which restricts council for holding a council committee meeting in licensed premises. That's all. Because in my opinion, holding a council committee meeting in licensed premises doesn't send a good message to the community. Appropriate, but other councillors may have a different view, and I think their consideration should be to changing the venue based on the fact that it is a council committee meeting. So I'm just wondering whether there's anything in the policy which says we can't hold it there. Or
Mr. CEO.
Through you, Chair. I would think all I can give you, I might take it on notice, but it would be certainly inappropriate for any council staff to drink at that facility or for a councillor to drink during the meeting. To hold it in a licensed facility, I don't think is a great sin. I'd be uncomfortable if it was held in a public drinking area. You know, if it's in a side room or something, I think that's a different show.
Yeah.
And certainly alcohol should not be supplied, if possible.
Through the chair, for the last 12 years, we have had that as a debriefing meeting, and then like a Christmas celebration as we finished off a lot of work that the committee has. But I do take your point, Mr. Miletto, and I do look for guidance if that is a point of concern for council, and will be guided by the council in relation to if that is thing. But we have had that continuously at those events, only on that one meeting every year. So, but yeah, if that's a difference, then we're happy to take that.
Through you, Chair, I'll get some guidance to you on. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. CEO, through the chair.
Thank you. Any other discussion? In that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Excellent, unanimous. Thank you. I'll declare the motion passed. Item 2.2 is minutes of the Orange Health Liaison Committee held on the 1st of November. Recommendation is on page 61. And do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Kinghorn, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Evans. Any discussion?
I'd like to
sorry, Councillor Peterson.
I'd like to speak in favour of the motion. It's on page 47. It's about smoking prohibition enforcement on Summer Street. Speaking in favour of it from a community safety and for maintaining a inviting CBD point of view.
My apologies, it had 61 on my paper. 47, page 47. Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Any other discussion? Nope. In that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. It's unanimous. Item 2.3 is minutes of the Ageing and Access Community Committee meeting on the 8th of November. Recommendation is on, hope it's right this time, 66. On page 66? It is on page 66. Excellent. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Floyd. Thank you, Councillor Kinghorn. Any discussion? Yes, Councillor.
And it's just so on page 66, item 4.1.4 seems a little bit out of context there, because I think the request that I had was a little bit more than that, because it looks odd talking about trolleys in the Ageing and Access Committee. But when we discussed it at the meeting, I think abandoned trolleys are an access issue because people wouldn't take them and push them any further than they absolutely had to if there was an alternative. So they do it because they haven't got a car or they can't get home. So what I wanted done was to get some information about how much is involved, and actually part of it was to speak to the supermarkets as well to see whether we could try something different, which was actually using that funding instead of them paying fines to deliver people's groceries so that they didn't have to do that. We've tried a lot of things with trolleys and nothing's worked, so I just thought we should try something outside the box. But contextually, that's why it's there, because it looks weird, but it actually did make sense. I think it's an access issue.
Okay, and I'm assuming that we captured that context.
Sorry, I was reading something else. Apologies.
Again?
Yes, through you, Ms Chair. So these recommendations go back to committee to follow up. So they were part of this consultation and providing these minutes for adoption. So the staff and the clerk of that committee, if you just want to touch base with them so they ensure that they have... just touch base with the clerk to make sure that they have that context.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just put a point of clarification in, Ms Chair, with that particular one then? From my memory, a previous councillor on a previous council had put in from my memory, a motion for the trolleys to be clamped. So would that or would that not information be available from that previous council? Because I'm pretty sure that question was raised in a previous council.
Chair, it was by Councillor Romano, and information was provided. We can find that, get that back to you as well.
Excellent. Any other discussion?
Magnetic.
Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Ms Chair. Just to draw attention to Director and Council staff at the Ageing and Access Community meeting, it was raised that some of the requests and for information reports from our meeting in April had not yet been actioned by the November meeting. As a committee, we thought that was a bit slower than we were hoping for, so we're hoping those reports could happen soon, as indicated in the action plan.
Noted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Milito. Yep.
I received a photograph today by a concerned resident of Gloucester Street. They were concerned that somebody dumped a truckload of topsoil on the footpath. Tarp. Lady who was elderly had to go off the footpath, and it clearly shows disruption to the traffic or the foot traffic. Had to go on the roadway with her trolley. So I think I'm just wondering whether there's an opportunity to send out a reminder to people who are looking at top dressing their lawn that you can't dump topsoil on a public footpath. Able to walk around, especially older people. So we can do some comms around that. That'd be greatly appreciated.
Excellent. Can I pass that on to you, Mr. CEO?
Yep. Thank you.
Alrighty. Any other discussion? In that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. It's unanimous. Item 2.4 is the minutes of the Clifton Grove Community Committee held on the 17th of November. Recommendations on page 89. Nope.
Page 90.
Page 90. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Floyd. Thank you, Councillor Kinghorn. You guys are getting top of the class today. Any discussion?
Just a point of clarification, Mr Chair. Item 2IA, removal of insulation of fire at Mud Hut. I'm not sure if that's a typo, but could someone explain to me what that means, please?
It's got of installation twice. Is that what it's?
Yeah.
saying that would be a typo.
Through Chair, I'm imagining it is, yes.
Any other discussion? Nope. Excellent. In that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. It's unanimous and passed. Thank you, councillors. Concludes the Services Policy Committee meeting being 9 o'clock, and I will hand back to the Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor McDonald. The council meeting resumes, and we'll move on to item notices of motion. Item 4.1 is on page 18, which is rates notice breakdown and expenditure.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I'd like to move a motion that future rates notices include a breakdown demonstrating how rates are spent and additionally how total council expenditure is spent.
Can I have a seconder, please? Thanks, Councillor Mileto.
So ratepayers expect transparency in how their rates are spent. Other councils and other levels of government have easy to interpret information. Explaining this as part of their notices and receipts. We think of when you get your income tax return, that receipt that has all the horizontal bars about how your money is being spent, and that $11 billion gets spent on interest of government debt. Anyway, this would help demonstrate the variety of different work that a council is involved in on the community behalf, give a more informed bias for community discussion about modifying how this money is spent if desired. And as part of the motion, I've specified that I'm hoping that how rates are spent can be shown separately to how expenditure from council overall is different. As external grants, we don't have a lot of control over where that is spent as compared to our rates. So I think it would be good if both could be done separately in a nice pie graph, perhaps.
There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Unanimous. Move on to item 4.2, which is Gunnerbulla Mount Canobolas mountain bike trails. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Power. Seconder? Councillor McDonald. Any speakers? Councillor Floyd.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be voting against this motion tonight, just based on the motion wording, not to carry out any further work towards a proposal. My take on this is that the proposal be scrapped altogether. I can see where the councillors and some of the community groups are coming from in relation to costs and both the environmental and cultural significance. However, I believe with proper fiscal management and community consultation, I have full confidence that this council can provide a world-class facility in and around the Mount, benefiting the community and tourism while addressing these sensitive cultural and environmental issues. I conducted a quick search of the National Parks and Wildlife website during the week, and it shows 99 mountain bike trails in New South Wales within 49 parks. The website identified that 33 of these parks, or nearly 70%, also had significant Aboriginal sites and or rare native flora. So it appears to me that mountain bike trails certainly can coexist in sensitive parklands if they're structured properly. I think as a council we have to work progressively and positively to achieve great things, and I believe that firstly our sporting precinct, our planetarium and conservatorium and the mountain bike track, when the time is right, will be huge drawcards of immense importance to not only Orange but the surrounding districts.
Thank you. Councillor Maletta.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do not support the motion as there has been no previous formal discussions taken place involving councils with regards to Orange City Council not carrying out any further work on Mount Canobolas bike pack due to economic priorities and apparent challenges facing council. In my opinion, that is just an opinion. I've been provided no evidence there. Quite often I hear council indicate that greater consultation is required. Here I'm seeing that this motion contradicts that process. I haven't been provided any information with regards to the financial challenges due to rising inflation and the escalation of construction costs. There's been nothing provided to me. I'm confused and would need further information in regards to the impact on an ongoing severe weather events and how this affects the work currently being undertaken. I would further welcome resources and expenditure being allocated to this project to ensure that a thorough assessment of all relevant heads of concern be undertaken prior to any final decision being made in the future. In addition to that, I've also spoken to several Indigenous people, some of whom were elders, who have indicated to me that they do support Mount Canobolas mountain bike track, providing that their concerns are managed appropriately. I would like to see further discussion continue between that section of the Indigenous community, as the feedback which I have received indicates that some of the Indigenous community are divided on this issue. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll be voting against the resolution. The Mount Canobolas mountain bike trail is a project that represents significant investment in council time and money spent to date. I feel it's unprofessional to vote to throw this away 4 days' notice and a notice of motion without any more details on the project. I would, however, support a further briefing on the project, what the future efforts and costs, and then use that informed knowledge to make an informed decision.
Any others? Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Mr. Mayor, I will be speaking for the motion. But at the same time, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to take in notice the speakers that were speaking in relation to the bike tracks and the benefits of that. I think it was Mr. Turner that first spoke, was very eloquent. I thought it was very good in relation to him stating that maybe a little bit more consultation with the elders, etc. And I think it's really something that that we need to continuously walk down, as what the guest speaker actually mentioned. He said, how can we actually walk together in relation to this? I then also heard that there was the Aboriginal Land Council were supportive of that day. I can't clarify whether that's right or wrong. It's just what I'm hearing. So let's just continue to walk down that. But I definitely will be voting against for the motion here today in relation to the impact, financial impact that Orange City Council has had. But just still noting the other councillors' views too, and appreciate their views on that. But that's my view too.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, this is a project that's been contentious for several reasons since it was sort of first proposed. But at this stage, if for no other reason, it should be abandoned simply due to the economics. We currently have 3 major already approved projects underway. Conservatorium and Planetarium is already short $2 million. Sporting Precinct is already short at least $10 million, and the Southern Feeder is not funded to completion. Construction costs are skyrocketing, as we all know. These figures are highly likely to blow out further. We got little value for the $500,000 spent in this project thus far. The list of requirements identified in the SEARS documents is long and comprehensive and require several million more. And that's all before we even get to a formal application to submit for an approval. But community opposition is not just on financial grounds. There's vehement opposition to the inevitable destruction this project will inflict on the unique and fragile ecosystems on Gunnabulla. There are species there which are not found anywhere else on Earth. You may argue that funding can be secured in the future and more trees can be planted or other such tokenistic actions. But I'd challenge anyone to argue that the desecration of a site which is sacred to our First Nations peoples is a worthwhile venture. We've heard directly from Uncle Neil and Auntie Alice right here in this chamber and in the media about the deep, enduring significance of Gunnabulla to Wiradjuri Dreamtime. The mountain is sacred to First Nations peoples. To ignore this smacks of white privilege. To disrespect the cultural heritage of the oldest living culture in the world is unjustifiable. Our job as council is to listen to the voices of our community and advocate on their behalf. We engage and consult with the community. We must listen to and respect what they say, otherwise why bother at all? This year alone, the community has spoken on this proposal via both the CSP and DMP processes. Of the 34 written submissions to the draft CSP, 32 were strongly opposed to the proposal, which is over 94% of responses. We get comments that this is only a small section of the community, but the CSP process was open to the whole community. To dismiss those who took the time to contribute while assuming or claiming that the so-called silent majority feels a different way is presumptive. As a reminder, here are just a few responses. Why are you willing to desecrate the Wiradjuri people's sacred and significant dreaming place? Further expenditure on bike trails on Gunnabulla both corrupts and makes a farce of the spirit and the intent of our community participating in the development of a community strategic plan. Tracks should stay in the pine forest. I'm totally against this bike track as a business owner in Orange. I can't believe this is even being considered. I oppose the proposed mountain bike trail. Protection of both tangible and intangible Wiradjuri heritage is noted in the Council's delivery plans. Any further development within the SCA would be in direct conflict with this goal. Suitable alternatives are available in the adjoining state forests. Community feedback to the DMP was also strongly opposed to any development within the SCA on Gunnabulla. As a staff report to our council meeting on the 20th of September states, all responses, with one exception, focused almost exclusively on and were opposed to elements of Theme 7, nature, cycling and recreation in the DMP, and particularly the proposal to establish Mount Canobolas as a hero tourism attraction and proposed development of major infrastructure on the mount. Again, the feedback from our community was, we do not want this on Mount Canobolas. I'll just finish by quoting the New South Wales Forestry Corporation SEARS response, which says, given the harvest and replant nature of our tenure, the track constructed within the plantation will have a 30-year lifespan at most, and at worst might need to be rebuilt every 15 years as harvesting occurs. State forests are very suitable tenure to host such a proposal. We're not against a mountain bike, we're just against it on Mount Canobolas.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Listen, I don't disagree with Councillor McDonald. council hasn't had finances to this
Or
budget.
against?
Sorry, I'm speaking against the motion. Hasn't donated any finances to this or budgeted any finances to this for, I think, for the next 10 years. But getting back to what the Land Council, Section 52, or don't quote the numbers that I get, but they are responsible for the heritage of the area. I've spoken to. They said that they're quite happy to support the process, but long as they are consulted. They are also supporting the process because if we have to get government money to do more archaeological tests and all those type of things, they're absolutely fantastic because they can identify more places, maybe sacred sites or whatever the case may be. So I think there's a huge positive there to keep this mountain box situation going. I'm not even considering at this moment whether it's viable or not. I get the impression that it is going to be actually big for the city. But I mean, I want to make sure that we do find out what is actually up there. To do that, we've got to get financial assistance from the government. We haven't allocated any money. So I think we need to keep it alive and just do our research. I fully accept what the Land Council says, and I think go against anything that, as far as consultation with them as whatsoever.
Councillor Kinghorn.
I'm actually going to speak for this. I don't necessarily totally like the way it's worded, and I don't like the way it then removes any funding towards mountain bikes in the state forest. The issue that I have is just that, and I would have no issues at all with the Canobolas mountain bike trails if the cycling lobby, the environmentalists and the Indigenous groups all agreed on it being okay. While they don't, I have serious doubts about the New South Wales government body that would approve it, actually approving it. So the idea of, I know we haven't funded it, but it's on the budget wish list at $1.5 million, and I would hate to waste $1.5 million on something that probably wasn't going to be approved. So if those groups can get together and everybody's happy, then I would happily approve it. But at this stage, then I'm going to support support the motion.
Any other speakers? Councillor Greenhalgh.
Yeah, I'm just going to speak against the motion because I think we really need to defer it to get some more information because I don't believe this council has actually fully been briefed on it. It was something that was put forward before our time. And I think, there may be a possibility we can reach a happy medium between everyone. So I think to throw away an economic part of what is a $600 million industry and just quash it would be crazy. I think it's doing no harm at the moment to leave it sitting there in the background, just, floating away. And it's not to say that it can't come before council again in 12, 18 months' time, but I don't see any harm in just leaving it sitting there where it is and seeking more information and consultation.
Any other speakers? Councillor Whitten.
I'll be speaking against the motion. I do so for the simple fact that if this motion gets up, then it's taken off our books altogether. The role of the council is to look at projects that will benefit the city in the future, economically, jobs, environmentally, and as the gentleman who spoke earlier said, that there is no evidence that that these mountain bike facilities do not coexist with Indigenous areas, and they've been quite successful. And those who have benefited greatly from facilities like this are the Indigenous communities who have the ability to oversee them with oversight and run them as well. So I certainly don't agree that council should expend any further money, but I do agree until such time, of course, that we can grant funding or other monies to do the research. But certainly, if we take it off our books, then we're telling staff that not to pursue this anymore. It stops. If it's on there as a project to allow staff to liaise with government and funding bodies and with the community and the stakeholders to talk about what can be done, because as it moves along, other ideas may come from this that will benefit the Mount Canobolas and other recreational activities and the health of that mountain. We heard earlier that environmentally it needs a lot of tender-loving care. Governments aren't seeming to be doing that at the moment. So that's the reason I'm voting against the motion, for the simple fact is that we're telling staff that this is no longer to be pursued.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'll vote for this motion this evening based on both the people I've spoken to over the more or less since the election or even before, and also my own conscience. The foremost issue raised in this motion is the economic drawbacks, and I won't go into that too much because we've already covered it well and truly here tonight. Comment raised by the audience was, I agree with you, the conversation started between the two parties is with a bit of animosity, but I'd like to say over the last 12 months, I think that conversation, particularly with the people I've spoken to, has become a lot clearer and people are willing to listen to opinions and ideas, which I think is encouraging. Staff comment notes that there's no forward allocation, but it should leave it on the books. I do disagree, as I believe that endorses the issues around cultural heritage and the environment, and that's something I personally am not comfortable with. Fully aware of the economic benefits a mountain bike facility could bring, but I don't necessarily think it's the correct activity to be done in a sacred place, viewing Gunnabulla as a sacred place as a whole, not just as a map with red blips of sacred sites. I believe Gunnabulla holds a special place in the hearts of many across the Central West, not just the Indigenous, but the locals who have been born and bred here. A place of reflection, of quiet, and a place that signifies home for many. To the Indigenous people specifically, it's a place of dreaming, initiation, and deep-rooted connection. The day this clicked for me, and I would like to share this with the Chamber, is imagine if a developer came to town and said, I want to build a really big hotel. It's going to be fantastic for tourism. It's going to create heaps of jobs. But we're going to knock over St. Joseph's and build it there. Would not happen in a million years, guarantee you that. So why should this be any different, in my opinion? And mountain biking is a great sport and a real economic driver. Again, I don't believe it's necessarily the correct activity for a state conservation area and a cultural heritage site. I don't support the lock it and leave it policy. What I would support down the track is investigating ways we can leverage off Indigenous and environmental education and what makes Gunnabulla special. How can we use that to educate people about the environment and our pre-colonial past? To that end, I wholeheartedly support this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Mallard.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm speaking in support of the motion. And look, if nothing else has come out of talking about this motion tonight, hopefully it's at least positive to hear a number of councillors who say they're going to vote against it acknowledge that they want more information and they want a briefing on these things, because this was an issue in the election campaign a year ago. We haven't had a conversation about it until we were told it talked about in the budget. It used to be in the mini budget. Budget came, wasn't going to be in that because it's in the advanced planning and we don't do that. So it was time to really start having a look at this. But I genuinely do think this is a project that at some point we're going to, and I think we can make the choice about how many resources we throw at it before. I think, like the proponents of the Kunani Mount Wellington cable car who have just finally announced that they're not going to appeal, come after the planning council decision, or we can make a decision that this is not the right project for us this year, and might be all sorts of different reasons. This is environmentally. There is evidence, despite assertions made earlier, that mountain bikes can do significant damage, breaking up the the biodiversity. There's also the First Nations cultural significance side. There have been assertions made about the Land Council having positions that I don't understand being. I've heard Wiradjuri elders speak in public. I've Gunabula Action Group speak in public. I think there's all of those reasons, but then there are the economic reasons as well, and I think Councillor McDonald outlined them. I hope they've addressed Councillor Miletto's issues with not understanding what some of the background in the motion was talking about, because I think it's pretty clear cut. We're looking for projects. If we're lobbying, taking this off the book means we can concentrate on delivering, both of which are really important projects. I also want to note there are assertions about the economic benefit not founded in any solid evidence. So, there's no clear business model. I mean, what's the revenue stream if we build this? What's the revenue stream that's going to magically fund getting rid of economic council or the? I think mountain biking and tourism based on active transport is excellent, but it's not appropriate to do it. I was happy to be one of the sponsors of this motion and put it up because I do think we need to start everyone chamber thinking about those issues, the costs that are going to be involved, the staff work that would be involved, even to bringing it to the point or funding a consultant to think we should do. That's why I'm supporting the motion. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll be speaking against the motion. I've been a supporter of the mountain bike track since day one. It's consultation, and I think us taking it off the books, I'd rather see it left on the books for more talking, bringing more people to the table, and then we can get to some sort of hopefully happy medium where we could go for grant funding to make this go further. But it has to have all sides of the table, all sides of the people at the table having a discussion about this, and we need to be fully briefed as a new council. That's really important. So I suppose coming out of this, there will be a full briefing to the council on how it started, where it's up to, and how it can go into the future. So I'll be speaking against the motion. Well, there being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour?
3, 4, 5.
Against?
7, 5.
Matter arising, Mr. Tim, is it possible that we could
Through Mr. Chair, yes.
Yep. No, we'll bring it. Okay, I'll move on to item 4.3, which is notice of motion, statement from the heart. Moved by Councillor Power. Seconded by Councillor McDonald. Councillor Power.
Don't mind, I'll stand.
Yeah, no, all good.
To me, this motion is from the heart. My heart. A heart that reflects 60,000 years. A heart that reflects, at the same time, 240 years with no real identification in the very foundation of our Constitution. This is where we sit in 2022. I wish to thank the federal member of Clare for saying that he's going to cross the floor. Like the Garnabulla, the bike tracks and everything, when it comes to Indigenous components, there's always going to be a challenge, Mr. Mayor. There's always going to be a challenge. Because a lot of times we don't know where we sit, how we sit, the ideas, or even who we are in relation to this. Why I put this motion up and why I will be supporting it. And people have said it's a federal issue. It is a federal issue. It's a sovereign issue. It is a sovereign issue. It's a hard issue. There's only 80,000 of us, Mr. Mayor, in Australia. The last census says in 2021. But for this to move forward, it was difficult for the 1967 referendum to just even allow me. Mr. Mayor, I was born in 1961. When I was born, I was not a citizen. My family, my parents could never vote. 67 referendum, as what we're looking at in 2023, the referendum to identify we as people. And when we see this here, number one, to count us in the census. I was talking to a gentleman once at one of my tours, and he said, notice that there was a bump in the population. He said, I thought all these boats were coming in and saying, oh, there's a whole new migrants. But then he realised, and I said to him, no, sir, they finally counted me and my family. At the age of 6, I finally became citizen and then claimed as in the census, as what we did last year. The Constitution doesn't reflect Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islands. That's where it's at. We talk about the voice, and we've mentioned it in here that the voice is something that we will unpack, and I'll leave them to the guys that are on a bigger packet than me. But here on the ground, and I appreciate those wonderful sisters here that have gone through and actually started to talk, because it's not only non-Indigenous, Mr. Mayor, also Indigenous people too. We need to understand what this has happened. This Labor government is taken to the table for us. And so that's why, Mr. Mayor, I support this wholeheartedly from my heart. That 2023, sorry, Mr. Mayor, I never ever thought we'd get to this point. I thought I was gone. I thought my son would probably one day see us in the Constitution. I really thought it, but when I seen the Prime Minister, he wasn't the Prime Minister, the candidate then and now Prime Minister says that he's going to do it, my heart jumped. That's an Indigenous man. Yes, I may be able to see this, Mr. Mayor. So we'll see what happens. The population of Australia will speak next year. But on this point of time, as far as this council, this LGA, I stand in total 100% support of this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Whitten.
Mr. Mayor. I rise to support this motion. I too want to see my uncles recognised. Friends who live overseas cannot believe as a country that we do not recognise our First Nations people. And here we have an opportunity to not only be part of history, but to make history. Take this country forward, recognise everybody, brothers and sisters in Australia. For me personally, I wholeheartedly support this. It's been a long time coming, and I know it's still got a long way to go. As a council, our Indigenous community, we as a council support their efforts recognised under the Constitution. I just believe, and I know I'm speaking personally here, that must happen.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Miletto.
Mayor, I'd like to make an amendment to the motion.
Sure.
My amendment would be that the motion be deferred for a period of not more than 12 months to allow further consultation to occur where possible with all Aboriginal elders in the Orange IGA, and that more information be provided to Council in relation to this statement moving forward that would allow councillors to make a more informed decision on the matter.
Seconded by Councillor Greenhalgh.
Can I have that again?
That this notice of motion be deferred for a period of not more than 12 months to allow further consultation to occur where possible with all Aboriginal elders in the Orange LGA, and that more information also be provided to Council in relation to the statement moving forward that would allow councillors to make a more informed decision on the matter.
You want to speak to that?
Councillors, at this point in time, I haven't been provided enough relevant information that would enable me to make an informed decision either way on the original notice motion at this point of time. I just don't have that information. I congratulate yourself, Councillor Power, and the passion demonstrated by Kashana Delaney, and I've listened to the presentation she gave, and I was really impressed. But still, it comes back to the fact that I haven't been provided enough relevant information at this point in time. Councillors, this is an important issue, and personally, I do not think that council is a place to enter into the Commonwealth space. This is a constitutional matter, not local government. In my opinion, and as I've always said, council should be apolitical. It is also my opinion that we as councillors should not be trying to use our position to influence the general public on a political issue or decision. That being said, I would certainly like to support, promote and be involved in any further discussions with local Indigenous elders and the community before arriving at any final decision on this matter. One of the major concerns which I have is that I've been contacted by numerous Indigenous people who have indicated to me that they haven't been consulted themselves on this matter. They've told me that they're confused and don't understand the issues. Several have indicated bluntly that they don't support it. They've requested further local consultation be carried out, and they want their voices heard at a local level before any decision is made by council. As a matter of respect to the Indigenous community, I believe the responsible approach would be to have further consultation be undertaken before any decision is made and a report be provided to council with those findings. In the meantime, and while this consultation is occurring, I would like to continue to support locally driven initiatives to promote the well-being of Aboriginal people and communities. Thank you.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I'll speak against the amendment. We had a fantastic briefing not so long ago by Kashaya and Alicia on exactly this topic, which was thorough. It was very, very, very engaging. It was very, very informative, and it was really special. As Councillor Miletto says, it's a Commonwealth thing, and yes, it is. But we are the closest level of government to the community, and this is a way of us showing our Indigenous members of the community that we are behind them and that we feel that they do belong. And they do need to have recognition in the Constitution. So look, I don't think this needs to be deferred at all. We're not telling people how to vote in the referendum. It's us supporting the Indigenous community. Thank you.
Councillor Mallard.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll speak against the amendment as well, and for similar reasons to Councillor McDonald. Look, there's going to be a referendum coming next year. I mean, I think kicking this down the road for up to 12 months, avoiding having to take a position on it, is not something that
Point of
we
order,
should do.
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Mileto.
Kicking it down the road because I'm not trying to make a decision. I think all councillors have the right to make a decision, but I think, as we've discussed clearly on a number of occasions, where public consultation is needed, and if people want to come to me and raise their concerns, they should be entitled to do it.
Yeah, Councillor Mileto. So I think kicking it down the road, I think it's going to come back to council at some stage. So I don't think kicking down the road. So, yeah.
Right. Well, I'll still say I disagree with deferring a decision. I think
That's
we can
better.
make a decision tonight.
Yeah.
I think we can all be capable of having educated ourselves on it by this point. As noted, we've already had a briefing from some local youth ambassadors in support of the Uluru Statement. They've also taken us through the extensive process that led to statement. I mean, this is years of work leading to that, following decades of work trying to get some form of constitutional recognition dealt with. I fully acknowledge there is not formative opinion in First Nations community about whether they support the expecting that of any community. I've had people contact me as well when I've said this motion's up, noting that there is disagreement. I know there are some very good arguments in relation to whether the Uluru Statement's ordering of things is appropriate, but I've understood the reasoning. I think there's plenty more we need to do, and I certainly think the voice is not the only thing that happen. We need to make sure that the truth-telling and the treaties happen as well. But I'm happy to support this motion as the step towards indicating that we, on behalf of our local community, support ensuring that we take all of those actions in addition to everything else that needs disadvantage and the discrimination that First Nations people and communities still face. Thanks.
Speaking against the amendment.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, just to bring forward a couple of aspects. We've had 2 community engagements. I previously have moved into, we've had the people go to the Orange High School, TAFE. We've had community engagement about this very thing. Say there was lack of engagement, unfortunately, that's not quite correct. There is that community engagement. We've had the Rajwi elders requested for a meeting to discuss that. And we've had that. It was well supported, well attended in here in Orange. That was the reason why I didn't move this motion forward too early. I needed my community, this community that I've been adopted into, to make sure that they were aware. And the people that I gather around every day have said, let's do this. They are supporting this motion in its first form, and that's why we've gone to this point here. So it's not as if we haven't, we have. We've been working behind the scenes. I went to Orange High School too, making sure that the Aboriginal people were gathering to get the stuff out. And anybody could attend, which were a lot of non-Indigenous too, Mr. Mayor. That's why I will speak against the amendment.
Question, Mr. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question through you to the CEO. If council were of a mind to support the motion, which I am supporting, what commitment is placed on council? All we're saying is that we, as a council, recognise the Uluru Statement of the Heart and what our Indigenous communities are embarking on, which is to be recognised in the Constitution. So we're not committing this council to any monetary or other those commitments. Is that a fair comment, Mr. CEO?
It's almost there, Councillor. I think 2, as the motion says, to promote and support. So I think if the motion is successful, we'll be working with the group and we'll be getting information from them and probably using some of our channels to help promote. I don't think we're spending much money here at all. There's a letter going to the federal member, but there's no vote or
We're certainly not
commitment as
telling
such.
people
Yeah.
when they have a conscious vote. Well, that's certainly their right.
Yeah, primarily it's I guess a sign of support, and then secondly to try to help out with some of the information dissemination.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Greenhalgh.
Yeah, so I'm supporting the amendment, and that's probably the point that the CEO just made. It was point number 2, to promote and support the campaign for yes. When I'm not convinced that the majority of the Indigenous people are happy with where we're at the moment, I'm not prepared to put my name to that without seeking further information and a briefing. I loved the presentation that we had from the girls about the statement, and I thought it was absolutely wonderful, but I would like more information, and there hasn't been a lot of research that you can find about this to this point.
Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm also going to support the amendment. I think the idea of a First Nations voice to Parliament, obviously having a group of First Nations people advising on First Nations issues, is a no-brainer. It absolutely should be. I don't know why we don't have one already. The bit that I'm not sure about is why it needs to be protected by the Constitution. I would like to understand that. And I don't understand that at this point, and a lot of people don't understand it, and people won't vote for something that they don't understand. So I think in the long term, if you want people to vote yes for this in the referendum, even people who may not now be willing to do that, if they can actually understand the issues better, and I wasn't able to go to the briefing, so I don't have the same knowledge as everybody else, but like Councillor Greenhalgh, I've tried to look things up and see what I can do. I'd like to know the implications of it from for everybody. Truth-telling, fine. I know that Indigenous people have been here for tens of thousands of years and we've only been here for 240. I know there are massive differences in outcomes and circumstances between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians. I know that they're much more likely to be incarcerated. I know they don't live as long. I know their health outcomes are hugely different. And I know we've thrown a lot of money at this over the last few decades without much to show for it. So I guess I want to make sure that if this is done, it actually will end up being something that does benefit the Indigenous community and not just another money-throwing exercise that does nothing. That's what concerns me. I thought at the NAIDOC dinner when Ivan Clark spoke, that was really very helpful because for the councillors who weren't there, he spoke about his own experience where he'd been removed from his family and the subsequent trauma that caused. And so he ended up in the justice system and he's turned his life around and now spends his time trying to help other people. But hearing that way was really, really very helpful. That's the sort of information that I would like to get, because I would like to be able to support this, but I can't support something I don't understand. So I will be supporting the amendment.
Councillor Evans.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll speak against the amendment and for the motion as printed. This motion, I believe, invites us to step up and be true leaders in our community, and I think they put it, walk with us. I think that's a good way to put it. I'm prepared to step up and support this on behalf of the people that I represent. I think there is enough information out there if you want to go and look for it. And even if you don't want to look for it, I think it's starting to come up in conversation anyway. I think there are going to be people saying this won't close the gap. What's the point? Maybe this thing itself won't close the gap, but I believe what it is set up to do and what it will achieve will close the gap or will assist to do it, but turning it down certainly not going to help. That being said, I'll wholeheartedly get behind this. Thanks for bringing it to the table, Councillor Power. Good on you.
Councillor Peterson.
Yeah, I'll speak against the amendment. Coming from a background, I suppose, of many years working as a doctor in Aboriginal medical services in 3 states, I just don't want pursuit of the perfect to get in the way of the good. Normally, I think we should fix every pothole before we look for political issues. I still believe this, but I think this is a local government issue. 16 local government councils have voted in favour of a similar thing, according to Councillor Power when I spoke to him on the weekend. I think turning it down would be an image that I don't want our council to be associated with. Given the resolutions in front of us now, I'm happy to support it.
Councillor Floyd.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to vote in support of the amendment, only because I'm just not too sure what the promotion and support side of this is going to be, and whether it's going to make council look like out in the community that we're forcing people to say yes, is my personal thought. Personally, I am all for it. I'm all for what the whole Uluru Statement supports, and I'm right behind Councillor Power 100% with all this, but it's just the look for the council as to what this is going to entail that I'm not too sure about. So I'm a bit hesitant to vote with the motion. I'd even like to see that 12 months maybe brought back to something like 3 months. So this is a lot quicker process. I don't know if Councillor Miletto would like to do anything in that space, but I think 12 months may be a bit long, but maybe 3 months that we could work something out in this, and then I'll certainly be all for it after that for sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just before we just hang on, Mr. CEO,
Senator. Can I just ask for a clarification from Councillor Miletto? The amendment says that this notice of motion be deferred for a period of not more than 12 months.
Correct.
So it can be less than 12 months.
Yes.
So it could, for example, be brought back in a month if a briefing or more information was furnished. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to support at this moment in time, I can't support it because I want more information. So I haven't had a briefing with them. I've got first and second and third cousins that they all differ amongst themselves, arguing all those type of things there. And in the public arena, if you look watching social media, there is arguments for or against within the Indigenous. So I want to make an informed decision. But like the gay marriage debate, it never came into the chamber here. It was a federal government issue, and this is a federal government issue. I don't want to be seen pushing our views onto everyone else. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong,
Through Mr. Chair, I don't know. I thought it myself was next calendar year was the hope.
2023.
It's financial year. Thank you.
Therefore, I'll support the bringing in earlier than 12 months if so be. But as I said, I have the issues. I want to know what will it do actually as regards to will it stop domestic, the alcohol abuse, stop all these other issues, will it create jobs, will it do all these things? I can tell you, I sat in this room here, which I thought was a historic situation as regards to the land deals that we made. Land Council and the New South Wales government and those type of things. I thought that was absolutely fantastic. That 100%. As I said, I want to support it, but I want more information, that type of thing. That's what here is.
Thank you. I'll be speaking for the motion from the presentation that I had earlier on. The thing that I no constitutional recognition is what I don't agree with. So I'll be speaking for the motion and against the amendment. So I'll put the amendment first. Oh, is there any other speakers? Sorry. Speakers?
Just a question to you through the CEO. Since there is no minimum time frame, when would you think that Councillor Miletto's report would come back, Mr. CEO?
We do have the Christmas.
Well, I don't think that's answerable from me now.
Okay, that's a fair comment.
I don't think it's definable.
You're speaking. You got a question?
A question.
Yep.
Can someone tell me in the room the best rate of referendums?
Through Mr. Chair, no, not I.
Referendum.
Are you saying what is required or the last one? The last one was the referendum for the Republic?
I'll put the amendment first. All those in favour of the amendment?
5.
Against?
7.
The amendment comes to motion. All in favour?
No.
Motion becomes the amendment's defeated.
Defeated. I'll put the motion. All in favour?
4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Against?
It's an 8-4. It's a win.
Carried. We'll move on to item 4.4, which is Council Report 2030 and Beyond, Adaptation for the Future Conference Report. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to thank Council through the CEO, just the short time.
Sorry, you're moving
Sorry,
it
I'll move it, sorry. Yes.
for discussion.
Thank you. I just want to thank Council and CEO for approving me to go to this conference. I found out about it at really short notice. I've just provided a report in there, a bit about what I attended and what I got from the conference. It was worthwhile going, but as I mentioned somewhere in there, I think it would be good to have something similar that is very regional focused. This was very metro and coastal centric, which was really interesting, but I was hoping to have more relevant regional things to bring back for our area. But just want to
give a
Council
report.
for sending me. Thank you.
Okay, there being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. We'll move on to item 5.1, General Reports, outstanding questions and resolutions of Council on page 30. Have a mover. Councillor Mallard, seconder.
Yes, sorry, I'll have a second.
Councillor McDonald. Any speakers? Councillor Greenhalgh.
Just a question on page 34, the installation of the Beyond Blue benches. How many of those have we installed?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there was a big meeting yesterday to sequence them. I'll have to come back to you.
I could provide.
Can you? I think the answer is 1.
If through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
I did receive an email today from Council indicating that the concrete pads will be going in. The positions have been decided. They'll be going in the next few weeks, and those chairs will be installed early next year. There are 15 of them at various locations, which have already been decided. Suicide Prevention Group.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Peterson.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, on page 46, I requested some information on the process of benchmarking council fees and charges for a meeting on the 19th of April. There's a question on notice to page 10 of the 3rd of May minutes. In August, was directed by email to the Your Government Council website. It didn't really answer the question. So in the fullness of time, I'm hoping for some more information about how we set fees and charges in relation to costs compared with nearby councils.
Take it on notice and get a report
Noted.
back.
Thank you. Yes.
No other speakers?
Yeah.
Councillor Duffy.
Yes. I asked for a report to come to Council about this year's normal 16. Completely barraged with how things look when you compare them. Golf club and the school.
Yep.
Same, and I travel around most of the park.
Through Mr. Chair, I had a discussion with Director Maunder about how much information we should give you. Are you aiming for December 20 to give that limit, or are you going to just circulate the specification? I think, how about we circulate it to Councillor Duffy? Yeah.
I'm after looking at the
Yeah, but I had a legal discussion with Councillor Maunder as to whether you could see the contract, and we decided you could see the specification, which is a brief that the contract answers to. Well, sorry? It came from lawyer Waddell. Yeah. So we're going to give you that specification. We'll get the specification to you. Sorry for the delay, and then maybe we can have a chat about it. Yep. Yeah. Well, sorry
You
for
got
the
me
delay.
point anyway.
Yep.
Any other comments, questions? There being no other comments or questions, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. 5.2, conduction of the 24 local government election.
Happy to move that, Mr Mayor.
Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Floyd. Any discussion? Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just two questions. The first is I'm assuming that the specifics of running an election, things like, say, the duration of pre-poll, I'm presuming that's decided for us elsewhere, not amongst ourselves. And the second question, good. The second question was, I believe there was a motion from a previous council about a community referendum, potentially about a reduction in council numbers. I wanted to know what the process was and how we were going to address that motion.
Ms Constantine would like me to put that to the next council meeting. The report's written and was bumped from this council meeting because it was such a big paper. Decision needs to be made whether we put it to the next meeting. I'll talk to the Mayor, or say the first meeting in February. But it is written and you will be making that decision.
Councillor Kinghorn.
Is
that all, Councillor Peterson? Sorry.
It was. Thank you.
Councillor Kinghorn.
Yeah, I just had a question about the last election where it says the final costing for the last one was $354,000. It was noted that impacts of COVID disruptions and extra COVID precautions impacted this costing. However, part of this was absolved by the Electoral Commission. How much was absolved and how much would it have been without those COVID impacts? It doesn't really say, and I'm curious to know.
We better take that on notice and get an answer. Think we should be able to provide a breakdown of that. Take it on notice, Chair.
Thank you.
Being no other speakers, put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. 5.3 Strategic Policy Reviews on page 49.
Happy to move it, Mr Mayor.
Councillor McDonald, seconded. Councillor Greenhalgh, any speakers? There being no speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. 5.4 Strategic Policy Post-Exhibition Adoption on page 51. Can I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Floyd, seconded. Councillor Kinghorn. Any questions? There being no questions, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. The Chief Exec, we're moving into closed council now. The Chief Executive Officer will advise the council. We've had one item withdrawn, so we've only got two items.
6.2 has been
6.2 has been withdrawn, so we've got two items.
Yeah.
The Chief Executive Officer will advise the council if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised consideration by closed council.
No such items, Mr Chair.
In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993, the Local Government General Regulation 2005, in the opinion of the Chief Executive Officer, the following businesses of kind is referred to Section 10A2 of the Act and should be dealt with in a confidential session of council meeting closed to the press and public. Can I have a move if we go in the closed? Moved by Councillor Whitten, seconded by Councillor Greenhalgh. All in favour?
All up. Yep.
Against? Carried. The following items are classified confidential under the provision of...
Right. That, I think.
I'll just wait till we go in the closed.
Yeah, we're just waiting to be in closed.